what time did man first conceive the journey to the moon? For thousands of years, the astrologers, the philosophers, the writers of fiction have dreamed of such a journey, a long, impossible dream. But soon, the dream will come true. In this sixth decade of the 20th century, the first men will land and walk upon the surface of the moon. The journey to the moon is not an isolated event. It is the result of a decade of research and discovery in space exploration. At NASA research centers, scientists, engineers, and technicians developed and tested new families of scientific satellites, unmanned spacecraft, which would extend man's senses where he could not yet see, or hear, or touch. Spacecraft which took scientific equipment and experiments into the unknown darkness and sent back the light of new knowledge. From these satellites, man has learned the nature of microscopic particles in space. He has measured air density at great altitudes, discovered how electrons deflect radio waves in the ionosphere, and where radiation belts encircle our planet. He has determined the true shape of the Earth and mapped it more precisely, made new measurements of solar energy, and sent telescopes into the night for a first clear look at the stars. Some were joint efforts to add to man's knowledge, the combined scientific quest of other nations and the launch technology of our own. The early scientific satellites carried only instruments into space. Later, they would carry life, plants and animals, ranging from microorganisms to primates. These biosatellites told us how weightlessness, radiation, velocity, and pressure affected life in the new environment called space. As man learned more about the Earth and near space, he sought to know about his neighbors in the solar system. Probes were hurled through interplanetary space to the neighborhood of Venus and Mars. Nearing Venus, our spacecraft reported the atmosphere to be very dense, the surface hot enough to melt lead. These investigations told scientists that on Venus there is little likelihood of life as we know it. NASA also sent deep space probes sailing across uncharted seas, more than 360 million miles, to look for a brief but wondrous moment at our nearest planetary neighbor, Mars. We learned that Mars is probably more like the moon than Earth, pockmarked with craters, with little or no magnetic field or gravity. As important as the return of scientific information was the new confidence gained in our technological maturity, that man could design and control such complex operations across millions of miles of interplanetary space. Over the past decade, scientists also developed complex new instruments, to probe the intimate secrets of the long, mysterious moon. Television cameras took us live and close up to the lunar surface. Our spacecraft landed softly in the lunar seas. They examined the moon's color and sampled its chemical composition. Man witnessed a sunset on the surface of the moon, saw the sun eclipsed by the Earth, and looked back at his own planet 250,000 miles away. Other spacecraft circled the moon, photographing its yawning craters and soaring peaks, mapping more than 95% of its entire surface. These studies proved that man could land and walk upon the lunar soil. In this first decade of the space age, the science and technology which was used to explore outer space was also applied to practical benefits here on Earth. Down-to-Earth satellites provide a constant watch on the world's weather, serve as beacons for navigation by ship or plane, send voice and picture from any point on Earth to any other. In 10 years, we have come from a few experimental weather satellites to an operational system capable of night and day observations around the world. Today, satellites take portraits of storms that span half a continent and transmit them to meteorologists in many nations. They have detected hurricanes and typhoons and given valuable hours of warning to those who live and work in their pathways. Man has also learned to communicate by satellite, first with a great balloon that served as a reflector in the sky for earthbound transmitters. For most of the past decade, it provided millions around the world with their first glimpse of a man-made star zooming across the sky. Other satellites followed that could perform increasingly complicated communication tasks. Today, the technology proved out by these first families of satellites has been put to commercial use in an operational system which is available not only to television networks and businesses, but to people everywhere. All the world has been united to witness historic moments. Communication satellites have provided a valuable bridge to scientists working at distant points in the world. But space research was not the only mission of NASA. The first A in the name of this new organization stands for aeronautics. An airplane without wings, the lifting body. Someday, such a vehicle may be used to bring man back from space through the fiery re-entry of the Earth's atmosphere to a landing on the runway of tomorrow's airport. In 10 years, the field of aeronautics has kept pace with man's desire to fly ever higher, faster, and farther. Research has gone forward in jet noise, sonic boom, and aircraft safety. Hypersonic aircraft have been designed and built to fly to the dark edges of space. But the journey to the edge of space was not far enough. Man needed bigger rockets with greater power. the ability to cross the threshold of space for himself. In the 1960s, manned space travel became a reality. Many men here on Earth helped ready the systems which would take a few men across that frontier. The astronauts, star sailors on a formidable sea, conditioned themselves for the new phenomena of space. Then came the day when the first man was ready. Astronaut Alan Shepard became the first American to enter space.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, ignition.
That's pretty neat. Cabin holding. Cabin pressure holding 1.2 G.
Many astronauts would follow on longer voyages into space. John Glenn, first American to orbit the Earth. The experience of each added more knowledge to the textbook for all of those who would come after them.
AMR telemetry. Telemetry quality. Mercury cap 3, 2.
Godspeed, John Glenn.
Roger, our clock is operating. We're underway. Roger, we're programming and roll okay. What we long about here? Stand by for 20 seconds. Roger. Launch. Roger.
From these first flights came important information about the men, their spacecraft, and the facilities and personnel who supported them. Man could withstand the force of gravity many times his own weight. Man could live for extended periods, weightless in the vacuum of space.
Go, baby, go! Titan 2 GLV right there. They recovered that first stage, by the way. Not that one. One of them.
Man could maneuver his own spacecraft in orbit, make scientific measurements, take photographs of the space around him and the Earth below.
76, Houston is standing by. Roger, understand. Station keeping at 120 feet.
Baby.
Man could locate other spacecraft hundreds of miles across the ocean of space.
79Y.
Okay. Alright. I don't like to pause normally in this. So this Gemini 6 and Gemini 7, right? Or 6A and 7. They did this with no computers. Just thought I'd let you know. No computers here. These are analog spacecraft. Apollo was the first digital spacecraft. They did this with no computers. A rendezvous. In space. No computers. Human computers. Exactly. No electronic computers. Well, technically human computers. You get the idea. How ridiculous is that? Think about that for a second. Think about playing KSP when you want to put two spacecraft near each other. Think about all the math that you'd need to do that without a computer. Kerbal with no map view. Quite literally, Farnight. They didn't need computers. They had Buzz Aldrin. That's right. They made new math for this. Is that nuts or what? That's such a good... Gemini 6A and Gemini 7. Read about it. Amazing.
Hi. How are you? I've got a weird-looking machine here. What do they look like? The jaws are deflecting. An alligator's jaw is open and it looks like they're fully extended.
Thank Farron didn't open. The frickin' The freaking Gemini spacecraft has a wire harness that's more in common with my truck than it is with a spacecraft nowadays. Is that ridiculous or what?
Okay, we have a rigid light. Okay, Gemini 8, it looks good here from the ground. We're showing tone rigid. Everything looks good from the docking.
A lot of coffee. A lot of smokes. It's called good enough.
Man could rendezvous and dock with spacecraft sent into orbit ahead of him.
Gina, very stable and no noticeable oscillation. Okay, we're going to cycle our stop arm switch. Roger.
Link me up, Thomas. Oh, look at the capture. That's so cool, isn't it? That's so cool, huh? You know what? If that press conference is happening now, dudes, we can listen to the press conference. Lucky strikes and side rules. Different times, huh? And you know what, Animal? I've talked to these guys before. I talked to the guys that are in mission control, like Charles Dietrich, Jerry Bostich, Jerry Griffin. Talked to all those guys. I'm like, mission control smells like coffee and smokes, right? And they're like, how'd you know? I'm like, okay. It's tomorrow. Oh, okay, cool. We can finish this up and then we'll jump into space news, dudes.
Man could perform complex scientific experiments in space.
Did you see that one? Spun around with an Agena spacecraft, dudes.
Man could walk and work
Eddie.
outside his spacecraft.
Hell, I got the update. We'll share that up. Look at this, though. I like that. Fly, baby, fly. That's pretty good.
These first steps into space had taken
Looks like
man
fun,
hundreds of miles above Earth. Yet he dreamed of more distant and demanding voyages. Expeditions which would require bigger rockets and more
S4 beat
sophisticated
S200.
spacecraft,
Look at that. See the pedal
larger
fairing?
crews, and longer times. And so, man began his preparations for the moon, and the nation was ready to meet the challenge. Behind the spaceman have stood thousands of engineers, scientists, and technicians.
Oh, lander
All
leg
part
deploy.
of the team
Isn't that
dedicated
cool?
to building and testing the many components which
Dude, this-
contributed to the dream.
This documentary has some kick butt
America
footage in
called
it,
upon its
man.
industry and its institutions, placed new demands
There's
and
ONC.
offered new challenges to the establishments of our time. Education contributed ideas and experiments, scientific expertise, and manpower. Industry solved thousands of insoluble problems, found new methods and new materials
Oh, we will,
when they
Doc.
were needed,
We will.
achieved new heights in quality control and rates of performance.
We will. The entire Apollo program was done with no CNC machines. Not one. It was all guys hand tooling stuff. That's unbelievable. That is unreal. It's ridiculous.
Sometimes there were failures
Get
and
out.
accidents that claimed men's lives.
Get out. Get out. Get out. Neil. Get out.
The astronaut pilot of this research vehicle landed safely.
That's Neil Armstrong, by the way. AC fog. Boom! See ya! I mean, it's not coming on then.
But we corrected the faults and continued the
Sure,
work to be
CCO,
done.
yeah, absolutely. Damn right, Rocket Guy.
Youth witnesses the culmination of a dream. Here in this building at the Kennedy Space Center,
Look at the VAB,
the mighty
baby.
Saturn V rocket is ready.
There's the transfer aisle.
This is the vehicle which will thrust 3 Americans toward the moon in the greatest voyage of this century.
IMU, and yes, that's the computer. You see that ring? That's the computer. A lot more, Jonas. It's like listening to Seaberg again, baby.
The great adventure begins here at 1 mile per hour. A giant slowly and ponderously inching its way toward the pad, carrying with it the plans and performances of multitudes of people.
We just watched this the other day. Same vehicle, same crawler. Isn't that cool? Well, could be the same crawler. What a beast. Full speed ahead.
A series of test flights with the Saturn V rocket was essential to man's landing on the moon.
18, 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9. Ignition sequence starts. 5, 4, we have ignition.
And a liftoff. 32 past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11. You're 11. Got him. Oh, that's nice. Look at that thing.
The rehearsal began with Apollo 8. 3 days and 238,000 miles away from Earth, the pioneers of Apollo 8 came face to face with the lunar landscape.
In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light.
These men were the first to orbit the moon, to go where man had never gone before, to see sights which man had never beheld.
The late day, and the darkness he called night, and the evening and the morning was the first day. And God said, "Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters." And God made the firmament, and divided the waters.
It was Christmas back on Earth, but this was the time when both the Earth and the moon were in the right places, and this was the opportune moment.
And the evening and the morning was the second day. And God said, "Let the waters under the heaven be gathered together into one place, and let the dry land appear." And it was so. And God called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the waters called he seas. And God saw that it was good. And from the crew of Apollo 8, we close with good night, good luck, a Merry Christmas, and God bless all of you on the good earth.
Hey, nobody's perfect then, alright? We'll be seeing that again soon. Soon. We'll see that again. And it will be good.
3 months later came the second manned mission in the Saturn V rocket, the Earth orbital flight of Apollo 9, to test further the men and the new machine called the lunar module. Despite illness and anxious moments, the mission was successful. The command and lunar modules could separate across the vastness of space and could come safely together again.
Okay, Hydra. Oh, it's so cool.
Down 82 NA.
There's nothing like it, dudes.
18.
Nothing like it.
Plus 1221.
The next act in the prologue to lunar landing was Apollo 10.
Gene. There's my guy over there, John Young. Stafford in the center. Holy schnitzel. Look at that. What the fuck?
Two of the
This
astronauts
footage, though.
entered the lunar module and took it down to within 50,000 feet of the lunar surface. The final and most critical tests were completed successfully. The Sea of Tranquility now awaits the arrival of the first men from Earth.
Monitor descent.
Descent.
Helium monitor select switch to supercritical position.
Supercritical.
3 men will make the journey. Astronauts Neil Armstrong, Edwin Aldrin, and Michael Collins. They will share some of the experiences of those who preceded them. The launching, Earth orbit, rendezvous and docking, lunar orbit, separation of the command and lunar modules. Astronaut Collins will remain aboard the command module in lunar orbit. Astronauts Armstrong and Aldrin will land on the moon. Here on Earth, they have rehearsed the activities they will perform.
Nice, Creeper. There's the camera. It's a Hasselblad camera. Look at that. Cool, huh? Our EVA spacesuits are based off of that A7L. The ones that the U.S. used to EVA on the space station, they're based off of that. Still, to this day. When they made it during
The men
Apollo, they
are
made it
ready.
work, and they made it work
The
good.
machines are ready.
Well,
Now we know the dream will be achieved. The challenge will be met. In 10 short years, we have come a long way. But man's journey into space has just begun.
I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal before this decade is out of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the Earth. No single space project in this period will be more impressive to mankind or more important for the long-range exploration of space, and none will be so difficult or expensive to accomplish. But in a very real sense, it will not be one man going to the moon. If we make this judgment affirmatively, it will be an entire nation.
damn right. This is such a good documentary, man. It's so good. All right. Now that's a good start to space news if I've ever seen one, huh? Pretty good. What's the name of this one? I'll link it up in chat, guys. It's off the U.S. National Archives, so it's a public resource. We can watch it To our heart's content. Oh, man. There was some really good footage in here. Footage I hadn't seen before. Damn, that was good. All right, so welcome to Space News. Let's see what we got. Sorry about the little bit of a late start today. I wanted to make sure that I wanted to get that stuff done with the trains. So let me start transferring links over, and we'll go from there. We got to talk about the wet dress rehearsal that's going on with the Artemis 1 mission. We got some footage of Dream Chaser from what I understand here. We got an updated picture of SLS on the pad, which, you know, that's nice. That's nice. Right. Got some updates about what's going on with the Starship pad at the Cape. We got some new NASA technologies with heat shields. What else do we have here? Some new pictures from the surface of Mars. You know, they did helicopter there, you know. We got an update on the OFT-2 mission for Starliner. Some interesting news about Axiom Space. And we got some footage that I said I would play for Space News. Yesterday, but we'll start with this. Yesterday, has Elon become Twitter God yet? Oh yeah, you guys are definitely going to want to know about that, huh? Do you? That's the kind of poopy doopy news. Do you want to? We gonna start? You want to start with that? Get it out of the way, or? Oh, he's go. Oh. Maybe we shouldn't. Gotta head out. All right, Novus. See you, buddy. Any James Webb news? I covered some James Webb news yesterday, Jeffy. They are getting ready for final instrument configuration, so we're in the home stretch for the outfitting for the, we're in the home stretch for the outfitting for the, for the James Webb Telescope. Get it over with? No, what the hell? Okay, I know it's just suggested, but I went to Elon's Twitter page to I went to Elon's Twitter page to find the tweet about him wanting to. He's trying to do a hostile takeover of Twitter, from what I can tell. But also, look what popped up in the suggest. Uh-oh. Oh my god. At least it's not boring. Remember what I said. At least it ain't boring, dudes. Am I right or what? Twitter's like, no. It's just a joke. That's kind of funny, actually. Like, at least it's not boring, I guess. I don't know. Oh, it's definitely boring. Yep. What do you mean? At least it's not me. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you want to be associated with the person in the suggested boring? I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. You heard investors are panicking as they think Elon is going to sell his Tesla stake to buy Twitter if they accept. Jeez. I don't know, man. So Elon's trying to hostile take over Twitter, from what I can tell. Hostile takeover is when you just buy all the shares of the company and become majority stakeholder and kind of just become majority shareholder and then just fire everyone. Yeah. Hostile takeover is some Gordon Gekko stuff, man. Did you purge your mission control? No. I did that at the beginning of the year, Jonas. He doesn't have the cash. He is trolling the SEC. That would be really fun. Is it a good idea to invest in Twitter before Elon gets it? I don't know, Supercraft, but I know when he bought his original 9 point something or other % stake in Twitter, Twitter's stock went up like 10 points, dude. Guys, I am not. Elon's on a thing about like free speech and whatever on Twitter, and open dialogue should be welcome. You shouldn't, and it like for the most part it is on Twitter with a couple of exceptions there. Like, I mean, it's really, that whole thing is about like how much free speech do you have? Some people are absolutist about it. Some people are like, you probably shouldn't do that. There should be consequences. I don't know. I'm not telling you where I stand on that. It's not for you to. It's not your concern. Here. I wanted to cover that first and get that one out of the way. Guys, do you remember yesterday we went over the new crew transport vehicles for NASA to transport vehicles from operations and checkout to the launch pad? Those the canoe, the electric cars, they kind of are a little bit of an awkward shape, right? Well, guess what? We got a new render. We got a new render from them, and I think you guys will like it, okay? I got a new render. So here, take a look. Ready? Dude, this new render is really cool. I think you're going to like it. It kind of changed my mind a little bit. Thank you, Dinkelberg, for the meme. I'm sorry. I don't mean to knock on Canoe. What they're doing is cool. I'm sorry, guys. From Canoe, if anyone out there is from Canoe and you're watching this, I don't mean to harp on too much. Come on. It's cool. I really appreciate what they're doing. So I did a little bit of digging into Canoe. Basically, they're an electric car company that's based in, I think it's Oklahoma, if I'm remembering right. They're based in the heartland, and they really trying to push automotive manufacture out in the Midwest, which is, well, not the Midwest, the middle of the country, which is cool. That's cool. They've had a couple of bumps in the road here and there. Who knew? Trying to mass produce cars, says, the Twitter meme lord, is difficult to do, right? So, you shouldn't harp on him too much. With that being said, I still think the ox cart design was cooler, but it's okay. It's okay. I mean, it really does look like a toaster. But I appreciate the fact that they're trying to get a car company started up in the heartland of the U.S. That's cool. I appreciate and I respect that. Please stop making it look like a goddamn toaster. Okay? I'm still Team Hoonigan. Hoonigan, who are they? Yeah, me too. I thought the upgraded electric Airstream 310 was a cool idea. I thought that was really neat. Hoonigan submitted a bid, Smirks. Yeah, dude, I gotta show you. Hoonigan submitted a bid for the NASA, for the crew transportation vehicle. They were partnering with a couple of other people, Airstream, IBM, and Red Hat, and then Oxcart Assembly to do the renders. Look at this. Dude, this is what it lost to. But, oh, that is an EV-swapped Airstream 310 with moon rover wheels. It's an overlanding crew transport vehicle. God damn it, that thing is so cool. Why use airless tires? Because space, that's why. Yeah, that's pretty dope. That's pretty friggin' dope. That's really freaking cool. I think that's really awesome. Can it hoon? It's gonna be all-wheel drive EV swap, or it was gonna be an all-wheel drive EV swap. That thing is sick, man. How did they not pick this? Canoes are cool, I guess. That's cooler though. That's so freaking sick, man. Well, they lost their bid by $1,100, right? But Canoe's bid was for 3 transport vehicles, and Hoonigan and Oxcart and IBM was 1. So NASA got 3 for the price of 1, but they're tiny little vehicles. I firmly believe that the reason why they didn't pick the Oxcart one was because, well, NASA needed a big crew transportation vehicle for the shuttle. Why? Shuttle holds 7. Orion holds 4. You don't need as big of a transportation vehicle. So they went with something similar to like what SpaceX does with the Teslas, right? With the Model X's. Which the Model X's that's not a bad idea. The gull-wing doors are really good to be able to step in and sit down with a spacesuit on. That's actually a really good idea. It's really smart using the Model X with the gull-wing, so you don't have to open and close the damn door. You just press it, you know? That's pretty smart. But yeah, I mean, canoes are cool, I guess. They're neat. I appreciate where the company's coming from. I really do, honestly and truly. It looks like a toaster, though. Please stop making it look like a toaster oven. But then again, if we go back to the Apollo program, the Apollo astronauts basically used a friggin' milk van. So during the Apollo program, this is what they used right here. It's basically a freaking milk truck. So, and that was for 3 crew. Now, personally, I want to figure out what type of vehicle this is. If I knew this bid was going on, I would have wanted to figure out what type of vehicle this is and literally EV swap that. Yeah, .com. I appreciate the modular design for Canoe. I really do. They just got to make a thing that doesn't look like a damn toaster. Why does it matter with what the frick they go to the rocket? It really doesn't, Mars. It's just kind of more about having fun. Lieutenant Dan, ice cream. What kind of vehicle is this? I don't even know what type of truck this is. Okay, it's called the astronaut van. What is this? This looks like a Kaiser or something. The astronaut transfer van, known as the Astro van during the space shuttle era. Okay, there's the Astro van. Let's see. Similar vehicles. A modified Clark Cortez motorhome was used to transport Apollo-era crews to the pad, beginning with Apollo 7 in 1967 and continuing through Apollo Soyuz in 1975. This vehicle remained in use through STS-6 and is now on display at the KSCVC. Clark Cortez motorhome. All right. See that there, Clark? That's an RV. Cortez Motorhome was a Class A motor coach made in the United States between 63 and 79 with 3,200 built. Clark Forklift Company began making these motorhomes in 1963 in Battle Creek. They're commonly referred to as Clark Cortez Motorhomes. What are they using? The entire body of the Class A motorhome is built as a recreational vehicle, whereas Class B motorhomes are built into a van body and C motorhomes are built to have a recreational vehicle coach. Forklift. A 4-speed manual front-wheel drive transaxle was used to eliminate a drive shaft tunnel that would have increased height or diminished into... Ew, it's front-wheel drive. Early units used a Chrysler 225 Slant 6. In 69, a V8 engine was introduced by Ferd. Okay, I like it again. But still using the 4-speed manual transaxle. In 1971, the Tornado front-wheel drive In 1971, the Oldsmobile Tornado front-wheel drive transaxle with a 455 CI engine in conjunction with a GM 3-speed auto was used. Okay, I like it less now. Nice Ford potty. I mean, Tornado with a 455 though, but that 3-speed automatic, it's a turbo 350 but in transaxle form. That thing was a piece of junk. Now, you know what? I usually don't ask questions like this, fellas, but what would you use? What modern day vehicle would you use? Or what would you do if you were going to make a crew transport vehicle? That's a very interesting question. What would you use? It has to be, now don't just say like, Volkswagen Beetle. No, it has to be something cool, right? Like NASA, it has to look space age. It has to look cool. And yeah, to the pad. A modified Cybertruck. Send them out on Harleys. Something risk adversity. Model X is an easy off-the-shelf answer. Bill, that's what I said. I said you should have just used the Teslas. Or my other thing was a Ford Lightning. Should have used a Ford Lightning. A Segway, a helicopter, a school bus. Personally, I would use the Opportunity prototype. Yeah, that's a good idea. Hey, Predominant. A Trebuchet. Well, I'm British, so I'm biased. A red double-decker bus. Ew. Okay, Predominant. I just got your message here. A Canoe MPDV. Yeah, I'm with you on that one. A DeLorean. I don't think an astronaut in a spacesuit could fit in a DeLorean. Starliner, since it will never get off the... Oh! A bicycle? Wrecked. Impala? Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what I would use. I honestly, a Ford Lightning, an F-150 Lightning would be, yeah, that's what I would use, yeah. But see, that's the thing, fellas. If you notice, NASA's Apollo transfer vehicle, the astronaut van, is some random RV company, right? Clark Cortez Motorhomes. I didn't know about them until 5 minutes ago. And then the shuttle transport vehicle was an Airstream. And then this one is to Canoe, right? You notice a pattern here? They're all small businesses. NASA has something called, floating around in all kinds of systems, all kind of contract award mechanisms and stuff. It's called Small Business Initiative. NASA, what they try to do, I say Ford Lightning, but it's very unlikely that they would choose a big business to provide the crew transport vehicle. NASA has an imperative to work with a cottage industry. That's probably why they picked Canoe, you know? Yeah, Small Business Initiative. It's covered. Yeah. Ford Lightning pulling an Airstream. Good man. The Dacia. Good news, everyone. The new Dacias are in. So that's probably why they picked Canoe and why they didn't pick Tesla or Ford. I'm not sure. Hoonigan would have been cool. That would have been pretty sweet. But like, what? Do we have any like super unique vehicles? Horse and buggy. Nice try, Jebediah. No. But the toaster is fitting. Why the dislike? Because it looks like a toaster. It looks like a toaster. A P50. No, this wasn't an invitation to just say random quirky cars. Like, I don't know. Do we really have any like super unique vehicles like that? Like, Rivian kind of fits. Yeah. Astronauts to the pad like this. A Scion XB. Oh. What the hell? Okay. A Rimac Concept. Oh, that burned up in a field. Yeah. A Reliant Robin. Nice. Some bad news. Have you heard about the Sullivans taking on water? Yeah, I did. NASA paint job MRAP? Yeah, Spiffy, that would be pretty cool. That'd be pretty neat. Anyway, Speaking of cars, I do have some footage from the Gigafactory in Austin if you guys want to see it. It's some drone shots like the one from Giga Berlin that we went through. Let's jump into that and see what we got. I think we may have seen this footage during the Cyber Rodeo, but either way. They open the rodeo with this? Yeah, that's what I thought. Somebody said they wanted to see it, and I told them I'd share it during Space News if you were in chat, so hopefully that person's here. That's nice. Battery cells, did you see that? Here's the paint booth. Yeehaw! Yep. Okay, cool. That was the Cyber Rodeo footage. Sweet. That's pretty cool. I never actually bothered to go and look at that thing on Google Earth. Let me see. I wonder if they have an updated picture. Let's check it out. The Gigafactories are so big that we could have test tracks inside them. Yeah, we could, couldn't we? Pflugerville. Okay, so here's Austin. Gee. I wonder where the Gigafactory is. Wait a minute. Wow. Not bad. I don't know, Hokey. Whoa. Oh, man. Look at the cars next to it, dude. That is a huge mother. Wow. Okay. Imagine living over here. You're like, what the hell is that? Okay. Why do they call it a Gigafactory, though? Because that's its name? Why do they call you Mycon? Alright, let's take a look. Yep. Yeah, that's not a small building, man. Here, let's, just for reference, 0.72. Let's go over here to another thing in Austin that I particularly enjoy. It's almost the size of Coda. Okay. Yeah. Yep, it's almost the size of Coda. Yeah, see, there's Circuit of the Americas right there, the Formula 1 track, and there's Gigafactory. Yeah, it's almost the same size. Okay. Okay. Alright. Okay. Alright. Alright, that's fair. That's freaking gigantic. Okay. Perfect test track. You know what? You're not wrong. Man, last time I was here, none of this was there. I think the last time I was at Coda was in 2013. Yeah, it's a little different from what I can tell here. There's a few roller coasters being built at Coda. Where? That's cool. Yeah, I like Circuit of the Americas. It's a good track. Good track. Fun track to drive. looks like there's a little dirt track going on over here. How long was the runway the shuttle landed at? 15,000 feet. Alleviate. That's how long the SLF is. Yeah. How does the size compare to Boeing Everett? Boeing Everett's still bigger, Bill, but not by much. I mean, dude, look at the damn cars. Look at the cars compared to the factory. I always use cars as a point of reference because everybody knows how big a freaking car is, right? Like, these are Teslas. Everybody's seen a Tesla at this point. Like, that is a huge mother. Like, that's... Alright. Oh, look, you can see the cells. You can see, you know, each individual piece. Pretty strange, man. Trying to downvote this factory. There's a huge gigafactory in Shanghai as well. We need a test track on the roof. Fiat Lingotto style. That is an awesome, yeah, that's an awesome idea. Yeah, just while we're on the subject of really cool automotive factories. Especially, I know all about that, dude. It's right here. So this is an old Fiat plant, and they literally put a short track on the freaking roof because Italians. There's a short track on the roof. Oh, okay, Creeper, I got it. Yep. Hey, you cannot build the factory here. You cannot build it. You cannot build. There is not enough room. All right, fine. I build it on the freaking roof. You can't build it on the roof. Yeah, watch me. I build on the roof. I build the track on the roof because I freak you. Because vaffanculo. Seriously, yeah, freaking roof. Yep. The center here has something similar to a parking garage, right? So that, you know, the assembly lines went back and forth like a sandwich. Raw parts would go in the bottom, cars would come out the top. Yep, one of these is at the end of the assembly line, so to speak, and the other one is just a parking garage down to the surface. It's actually really goddamn smart. Yeah, that's one of the coolest freaking things. Yeah, see, it's just cars on the roof. You cannot build it. You cannot do that. You cannot build the cars on the roof. Watch me build the cars on the roof. That's awesome. So freaking cool. Just don't fall off? Yeah. I'm pretty sure Fiat doesn't use that factory anymore. Their factory is over here. And look, it has a similar test track outside. It's just on the ground though, so it's not nearly as cool. Yeah, that's a much bigger factory. Is that where Mopars are built now? Yes. Yeah, that's Turin. Yeah, for the people that don't know, the northern parts of Italy, from basically like here up, these parts right here, is super industrial. In the same way that like the Midwest part of the United States, like all along the Great Lakes and stuff, like right here, that's super industrial. It's like that. Like anywhere in here. Northern parts of Italy are like that. A lot of factories. Like Ferrari or Fiat, for instance. What do you think of the South African track F1 is thinking of adding from? Kilami? Kilami's a good track. Yeah. I think that's how you say it. Hey, Danzu. That's a good track. Very fast. Very fast. They stopped racing there in the 80s for... They stopped racing there in the 80s. Yeah. Did you see the giant Singapore proposed track? Kilami. Yeah, thank you. Racer, I saw your email, by the way. I like that footage, especially the P-34. That was really cool. Hey, Bandit, what's going on? Did you see Singapore has a night race predominant, and I've always liked the Singapore track. It's just a shame that they stopped racing it in 2017. Yeah, it's just a shame. But anyway, all right, let's keep going. Oh yeah, there's that other picture. Yep. All right, so we have the Saturn footage here. That's from a little while ago. All right, so we got an update on the wet dress rehearsal. The third attempt on the wet dress has concluded. Let's see. Teams concluded today's wet dress rehearsal test at approximately 5:10 p.m. Eastern after observing a liquid hydrogen leak on the tail service mast umbilical, which is located at the base of the mobile launcher and connects to the rocket's core stage. The leak was discovered during liquid hydrogen loading operations and prevented the team from completing the test. Before ending the test, teams also met test objectives for interim cryogenic propulsion stage by chilling down the lines used to load propellant into the upper stage. They did not flow any propellant into the stage because of an issue with a helium check valve identified several days ago. When teams paused propellant loading, the rocket's core stage liquid oxygen tank was about 49% filled, and the hydrogen tank had been loaded to about 5% capacity prior to the hydrogen leak. Teams are now working to drain propellant from the rocket. They will inspect the umbilical connection, review the data, and establish a go-forward plan to address the hydrogen leak. NASA plans to host a media teleconference on April 15th to provide updates on troubleshooting and next steps for the wet dress rehearsal. Things are going to happen when you don't use a launch pad for, what is it now, 10 years? And Steiner, it's not just even the launch pad. It's a bunch of new hardware. You introduced all new hardware stuff. Leak location, let me see. Irene Klotz asks, hi, so if the leak was detected in the tail service mast umbilical, does that mean the leak is inside the mast structure or the exterior portion of the umbilical? The leak is located in the purge can, which is on the exterior portion of the tail service mast umbilical and attached to the TSMU plate itself. It is currently extended, and at T0 the panel would retract into the TSMU main housing. So that's this thing right here. See this? That thing right there, that's what that is. That is the tail service mast umbilical carrier, and inside of it is the tail service mast umbilical. It's basically the attachment point for the hydrogen line. Oh, I agree, Allie. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. But yep, this was a shot from this afternoon. You can see there's clearly liquid oxygen in that tank, which is good. That's a good thing. But yeah, hydrogen leaks are no joke, guys. Now, okay, hydrogen leaks are no joke. You gotta stop. If something weird happens, you have to stop. You gotta stop this stuff. Now, I know what people are gonna say. Why is it taking so long? That's the third scrub. What's going on? What's happening? Well, I said before they attempted the wet dress rehearsal that you shouldn't learn anything new during a wet dress. You shouldn't do that. However, you can't take every single variable into account. So take from this two things. One, these are not big problems to have. You're always going to have unknowns, okay? It's not that big of a deal. You just got to check the data. You just got to make sure you do it right. You don't want to blow the damn thing up because you only have one right now, right? There's always going to be unknown unknowns. This is a brand new pad, brand new refurbished 39B, brand new rocket, based off of a previous flown vehicle, yes, but used in an entirely new configuration. It might as well be a new rocket. So, you know, the fact that they keep finding small things here and there, check valves closed or check valve malfunctions or trying to get the anti-geysering configuration to work correctly is that's just, yeah. You don't ideally want to learn anything during the wet dress, but, you know, there's no way you can take into account the thousands of systems on this rocket or millions of moving parts all working correctly the first time. Probability states that that's not going to happen. So ideally you don't want to learn anything, but if you do learn something new, you got to start over. Take that new information into account, start it again. It's important to take your time with this right now, which brings me to my second point. Don't freak out. Don't freak out. This is normal. That's the second thing. Don't freak out. It's fine. Yeah, you get leaks here and there. Hydrogen is a pain in the butt to use. It is by far and away the most efficient propellant, but it's really difficult to get it right. But once you get it right, it abides by the laws of physics just like anything else does. It's important to learn and understand that. Hydrogen's hard to work with. It's really difficult. Umbilical's visible in the picture when they had the Orion mass simulator on it. Yep. I mean, the leak could be nothing. It just could be a bad seated O-ring or something. Yep, see, it's this white. See, that's the tail service mast right here. Tail service mast is that thing. It's on a giant, basically, erector kit, right? And then when the rocket launches, this detaches and the whole thing folds up into its housing right here. See, it folds up and in, and then a huge armored door comes crashing down there. Isn't hydrogen like super easy to explode? Hydrogen makes stuff explode really well. Well, that's not really the right way to put it. LOX make stuff explode really well. Hydrogen blows up really efficiently. It's very flammable, right? But it gives you the best impulse, right? So it's not necessarily that it explodes really well. I mean, it does. It explodes very efficiently. Kerosene explodes really well. That's a more energetic reaction, but it's not as efficient. Hence, Falcon 9 flying through a black cloud of soot, right, when it comes back down to land. Yeah, I mean, it's really flammable, but it burns very efficiently. That's the right way to say it. I mean, when you combine it with liquid oxygen, you better make sure you know what you're doing, or it's going to explode in a way that you didn't anticipate. Now, why? Why is hydrogen such a pain in the butt to work with? Well, first of all, in order for hydrogen to exist as a liquid, right, it has to be really freaking cold. We're talking like 5 to 10 Kelvin cold, like James Webb Space Telescope cold, okay? It has to be that cold to exist as a liquid. That's a really hard thing to manage. You have to really manage your cryogenics and your cryogenic timings, but I wouldn't know nothing about that. You have to really manage your cryogenic timing. Why? Why is this so important? Okay, so hydrogen exists as a liquid in a very narrow margin. All right? Let me give you another example. Water exists as a liquid basically from 0C to 100C. All right? Past 0C, water turns into a solid. Past 100C, it turns into a gas. That's a 100-degree difference where it stays basically a liquid, right? Hydrogen is like maybe 1 or 2 centigrade. It's a very, 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 very short gap. Now, let me tell you, it's probably not going towards the solid. You can get solid hydrogen, but yeah, the gap for solid hydrogen is like 1 or 2 Kelvin or something ridiculous, right? What most likely is going to happen is you're going to get gaseous hydrogen. So your LH2, your liquid hydrogen, anytime you go to move propellants around and you're moving it through something that's warmer, that's not almost absolute zero, right? That hydrogen is gonna go the other way. It's gonna try to turn to gas. Hydrogen exists as a gas from like minus 400 Fahrenheit all the way up to, I mean, shoot, I don't even know. I mean, it kind of just stays gas, like, even at high temperatures, and then it combusts, right? Like, I don't know where it'll go the other direction, you know? Plasma at like maybe 3,000 Fahrenheit or something. Who knows? Somebody, a freaking physicist, would probably know it better than me, or a chemist, right? But long story short, you're dealing with a lot of hydrogen gas. You have to move the cold propellant through the warm pipe, so you have to cool the pipe down. When you do that, some of that liquid hydrogen will sublimate into gas. And gaseous hydrogen sucks. It's really difficult to work with. Why? Why is it difficult to work with? Well, LH2, right? You turn that into gas, you just get H, right? And when it becomes hydrogen gas, just H, or even H2 gas, hydrogen is very, very tiny. Very, 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 very small. Very small. So, here's the thing. If you have an aluminum pipe, right? You have an aluminum pipe. Well, aluminum's a little bit bigger, but there's always gaps between molecules, right? Hydrogen will go through it. It'll go through it like a sieve, like squeezing a sponge. Same thing. Oh yeah, it'll go right through it, come out the other side, and then you get a leak. The leak could be something like the umbilical isn't seated, but the leak could also be there because they didn't flow propellant at the right rate, which I'm willing to put my money on that's probably what happened. They didn't start flow correctly. You got to do it slowly, and you got to cool the pipe slowly. If you do it too fast, you're going to get too much gas. The line pressurizes, and then it leaks. Hydrogen gas goes through everything. It goes everywhere. And guess what? As to start this conversation, it's really freaking flammable. And what do we know about rockets? In terms of explosions, what do we know about that? You want explosions. That's what you want. You just want them to go in one direction. Hydrogen makes that really difficult. So, I know what the next question is for the newer people. If you're newer, you don't understand what I'm talking about. So, okay, why do we use hydrogen then? It is the most efficient. A gallon of liquid hydrogen will get you further. It has more range, higher specific impulse, than a gallon of jet fuel. It is the most efficient propellant by a long shot. Speaking of that, okay, let's see, what is this? During the transition from slow fill to fast fill, a surge in pressure prompted an automatic stop of the flow LH2. Teams are currently reviewing a forward plan to get back to LH2 flow. Safety parameters like this ensure the rocket remains at... Yeah, okay, that's what happened. All right, cool. There you go. H2 is only 120 pm, so 1.2 times 10 to the 10th meters long, so it'll get out of the smallest of gaps. Gaseous hydrogen is not possible. Gaseous H. Okay, yeah, so it's H2 as well. Sorry. Like I said, chemists will know better than me. So it's still, even in gaseous form, it's still H2, but it's so ridiculously small because it's in gas form. It leaks everywhere. It gets all over the place. Think about that next time you realize how like often Atlas V launches or Delta IV. Delta IV is all hydrogen. You wonder why they have so many problems with the damn thing. Excuse me. Yeah, no, I gotta brush up on my dang chemistry. Like I said, that's not my area of expertise. I mean, technically nothing is my area of expertise except 3D modeling on paper, but you get the idea. I'm making my way, all right? It is mole kinetics. Yep. Small molecule equals a moleculette. Lower size, lower percentage, lower number of atoms. Yep. And boo-woo. I'm not a chemist, but if we look at the periodic table, right? You look at the periodic table, where's hydrogen? It's up at the very top. So I got asked a question by a viewer, when we were playing railroads, like, well, why don't they use nitrogen to test? You'd think that they would use nitrogen to test. Well, great. Even if you test with nitrogen, look at how much more mass that nitrogen is. It's not that easy, guys. It's not that simple. You're going to get totally different flow, right? Now, what do I mean by totally different flow? Well, you have molecule size, right? Think about it like if you had a bag of marbles versus a bag of golf balls. Say you had 100 marbles in this bag and 100 golf balls in this bag. Well, and then you dump them into a pipe. Which one's going to flow faster? The smaller one, right? But which one is going to be hard to manage? You dump all those marbles in, they might go everywhere. The golf balls should be pretty easy because it's big, right? Easier to manage. Same exact thing going on here, but at a molecular level. It's very, very small. Very small. Hydrogen, very small. Very small, boy. You're an expert in our hearts. I'm not a rocket scientist, but I play one on Twitch. I lost my marbles. Yeah, see, I'll tell you, it is very easy to lose your marbles. Engineers don't like dealing with marbles. Okay? Can we use helium? Well, helium's inert. Make a pretty terrible rocket fuel. It's noble gases. It's over here. Helium is that'd be a pretty crappy gas to use. See last puzz. Puzz. I have some train news that's in EJ's area. Can I link it up? Always. Helium is also expensive and only a liquid at 1 Kelvin. Alright, what's this short line? Regulators approve CSX Transportation acquisition of Pan Am Railways. Oh, CSX bought Pan Am? I liked Pan Am. CSX is okay, I guess. I miss Boston and Maine, dude. Here, let me see. Let me look at that route real quick, guys. Anyway, we'll get back into SLS wet dress rehearsal stuff real quick. I just got some interesting train news. Regulators approve CSX transport. Get out of here. That livery's hot, though. Look at that. Oh, and Pan Am Railways. So this is Guilford Transportation Systems. Guilford bought the Pan Am name, and they made Pan Am Railways. It's the same Pan Am. Serious, yeah, like the airplane. That's ended up being a short line train company. CSX is probably going to sell the branding. Yeah, CSX. They're okay, I guess. A detailed map filled with the Surface Transportation Board shows how Pan Am Railways in red and Pan Am Southern in green connects with the easternmost point of CSX Transportation. Yep. See that line right there? That line goes right by my house. Short line, I need them to, just keep going with this line all the way up here and then over. You know what I'm talking about? We need to bring back the Mountain Division, baby. No, Contra. My parents' house. That's still my house until I buy my own house. Okay, Finn. Anyway, back to that interesting news short line. I'll miss seeing the Pan Am livery around here, but hey, whatever. How do they manage to make sure there's no spark from, let's say, an electrical switch or motor anywhere near the H2? Well, they use pneumatic valves to make sure. Finn, they use a pneumatic valve. That's why, like, when we're watching Falcon 9, you hear it go. They use a pneumatic system because, yeah, you don't want electrical near your hydrogen lines. You got to keep it separate. Mountain Division is still intact, owned by the state. It needs to be more intact. So yeah, they use pneumatic valves. Yeah, like I said, rocket science, it's a lot of pretty common sense stuff all being put together to make something complicated. It's pretty obvious. You don't want an umbilical that fuels like hydrogen and oxygen at the same time. You could probably get away with it with methane, and SpaceX is doing that with Starship, right? But even Falcon 9 has TSMUs on either side. One for LOX, one for kerosene, right? Generally, you want to keep them away from each other, right? It's just common sense stuff. Don't keep your oxidizer near your fuel. I always tell you guys, the only time an oxidizer and fuel in the entirety of the GSE with the rocket come together should be literally in the rocket engine. That's the only time you want them near each other. Every other time, they should be far away from each other as humanly possible. Solenoid valves controlled by transistors would be equally safe, no? I'm not sure, Synerd. Yeah, a pneumatic system would probably be the safest. If you have a pneumatic system with helium in it, yeah, that would probably be the safest, yeah. But either way, yeah. Called that with SLS, huh, Thomas? You got to get your flow rates right. You got to make sure you trickle the propellants in first. Like SpaceX doesn't have to worry about this because liquid oxygen is a lot bigger. It's a lot more volume, so liquid oxygen is a little less volatile as hydrogen. Simultaneously, methane, like what SpaceX is using, is also a little bit easier to handle. This is why everybody's kind of switching to methane and why we don't see more Hydrolox rockets with the exception of SLS, right? The reason is because methane gives you almost all the efficiency of hydrogen. It's close, but it's like 1,000 times easier to handle. So it's like 2/3 of the efficiency for like half the difficulty of handling hydrogen, because methane is CH4. It's mostly hydrogen. But let's do a little bit of chemistry. So you have C and then you have H4. The carbon, what is it? Carbon molecule has 4 H's attached to it. And that carbon is a big anchor, right? So it's a little bit easier to mess with because the hydrogen in this particular case is being stabilized by the carbon. So it doesn't leak. That's the easy way. It doesn't leak as bad. That carbon atom is that carbon molecule is also really big comparatively to the hydrogen. And it's super stable. Methane is poopy. You're poopy. On the GSE side, you'd prefer to use GN2 actuated pneumatic valves to save them the cost of helium, right? Bingo. And that's exactly what they do, Synerd. Yep. Booster 7 testing is ending for the day. Yep. The SpaceX umbilical probably uses nitrogen as a separator, just constantly intentionally leaking a bit of nitrogen so no propellants can pool. Well, that's how they handle anti-geysering, and that's something that I actually learned from this. When they slow flow these propellants, basically they hit the pipe with inert gas first. They fill it with inert gas, and then they slow trickle the propellants in. So you don't you basically purge out the line to prevent hydrogen from turning into gas and then getting pocketed inside of the line and then causing a geysering effect. Think about like if you have a can of CO2 and then a jug of water, right? And you have it held upright like this. So you have a bottle of water and a CO2 canister is attached to the bottom. You pop the cap, the water shoots out, right? Same idea. You don't want that to happen. You don't want pockets of pressurized gas inside of your fuel lines. That's anti-geysering. So they hit the line, they purge out the line and get everything out of it except like nitrogen or helium. It depends. The rocket uses helium on the vehicle itself because it's less mass. On the ground though, ground side, you can just use nitrogen, and that's what SLS and Starship use. Heck, Starship uses nitrogen to start the engines. Yeah, true story. What's more greenhousey, methane or burnt methane? Greenhousey? Gaseous methane is the worst. Unburnt gaseous methane. Because burning methane gas or burning liquid methane doesn't create more gaseous methane. Boo, do you know? So interesting. Literally molecular claws. It's really cool, Boo. And like I said, my knowledge of my knowledge of chemistry is like at the surface level, dude. Surface level. If I'm saying something wrong, please double check me. I mean, it's the internet. I know somebody will, but I'm pretty sure I got most of that right. But yeah, in case I didn't, please tell me, because once again, I'm not about it hurts my precious ego. I don't give a frick. I want to get the information correct. 1062 headed home. Okay, so these photos are coming from Jenny Houtman here. What is she up to? Well, first of all, I got pictures from the Fleet Cam, NSF Fleet Cam here, which has Falcon 9 on the transporter, and looks like Jenny got some pictures of the transporter going into CCAFS, or SFS now. Hey! Alright, that's the Axiom 1 booster. Booster 1062 rolls by after completing 5 missions, including 2 crew missions, Inspiration 4 and Axiom 1. Methane is about 20 times as greenhousey as the CO2 it releases when burned. Yeah. That's why they have a purge flame. And that's why launch pads have a purge flame too. If you notice, like a Delta 4 pad, Atlas 5's pad, even early Starship pads had a flame. They had a candle burning next to them. Why? Why do you do that? Well, one, you don't want to release gaseous methane. Two, the fueling process is going to create gaseous methane or gaseous hydrogen in some way, shape, or form. And the idea is that if you have a flame that's burning, it's going to pull the gas towards it. It's going to create suction, and it's going to pull the gas towards it like a Bunsen burner almost. Actually, not almost. Literally the same idea as a Bunsen burner. Anybody remember those? Do kids still use Bunsen burners? I don't even know. Delta 4 is the purge flame. It's the most metal rocket ever devised. Is that black soot from the engine exhaust? Correct, Jeff. Yep. While we're on the subject of propellants, remember, Falcon 9 flies through its own plume when it's coming back down. Supersonic retro propulsion. And what happens here is that rocket engines run extremely fuel rich. Now, anybody that knows anything about mixture in a combustion engine, it doesn't matter if it's cars, airplanes, rockets, you run fuel rich, temperature stays cool because the unburnt fuel kind of absorbs some of that heat. I mean, that's the really layman's way of saying it. But you run fuel rich, temperature goes down. You run lean, temperature goes up. If you have more oxygen than fuel, right? Or more fuel than oxygen, it goes either way with temperature. Rockets, to make sure they protect the nozzle, for instance, that's one of the reasons why the nozzles don't frigging melt. You run fuel rich. So Falcon 9, when it's coming back down, flies through its own exhaust cloud, and that exhaust cloud has a lot of unburnt RP1 in it, and that just adhered because the rocket's covered in ice at the time. That soot, the ice basically just absorbs all the carbon soot. Rolls coal, just like a diesel truck, dude. Same thing. Now, don't get me wrong. There's an ideal ratio to get the most efficient burn of fuel to oxidizer. It depends on what you're using. It depends on what fuel you're using. That ideal ratio is called stoichiometric. Okay, so once again, anybody knows about tuning cars, you know what I'm talking about. Stoichiometric. Rockets, if they ran at stoichiometric, they'd melt the engine. There would be no engine. There would be no engine. The closest rocket to ever hit stoich is RD-180s and RD-170s from the Russians, believe it or not. That oxygen-rich stage combustion cycle is the closest thing that runs to stoich. The closest rocket engine. And those things operate at extremely high temperatures. They have to film cool. They have to end up throat cooling and film cooling the nozzle to like running unburnt fuel through the nozzle to make sure it doesn't melt itself. Subsequently, Raptor also does the same thing. Raptor is combustion chamber film cooled, throat film cooled, and nozzle film cooled. All the film cooling. They pump fuel into the unburnt methane into the combustion chamber, and it basically gives you a thermal medium between the explosion that's happening in there and the metal that's containing the explosion. Film cooling creates a film of gas. Yeah, Raptor is film cooled 3 times over. That's how SpaceX can keep it from like not exploding, and even then, sometimes it still does. Night Sun Temple. When you get soot, you have incomplete combustion, as not all carbon is oxidized. That's right. Carbon soot is what makes the flames orange. You're orange, but yes, you're absolutely correct. And a certain new Helix engine does the same thing. Oxygen-rich stage combustion. Ah, wunderbar. Ja. Ah, ist gut, ja? Ja? Ja, ist gut. Ja. Ich glaube, ist gut. Gut. Yeah, film cooling is how they avoid running engine-rich. Yeah, you don't want to run engine-rich. That's called ablation. Yeah. The funny thing is guys, some rockets make the nozzle out of heat shield. Straight up. You want to keep the nozzle cool? You want to keep it simple by not film cooling it? Make it out of heat shield. Especially if you're only using it once. That don't matter. Just use it once. Okay, great. The nozzle burns away. Who cares? I'll give you an example. Now I know people are going to say, what rocket engine does that? The RS-68 on Delta 4. The nozzle is quite literally a heat shield, shaped in nozzle form. Take a look at it. Look at it up close. That's heat shield. That's it. It's an ablative nozzle. Absolutely a thing. It's Liebe, not Liebe. 9. I don't know, man. With hydrogen, you actually get better specific impulse by running fuel-rich, as the average molecular weight of the exhaust ISD is a factor in ISP. Yeah, hydrogen do be like that, though. Yeah, it's really nice. It's a trade-off, though. It's really nice to use, but it's really hard to get into the rocket to actually make the boom-boom. Yes, technical term. Arguably, every nozzle is a heat shield. They're just different types of heat shield. Yeah, it's all connected, Kentab. It's just physics, right? Don't be shy. It's just physics. I was wondered, is there any propulsion that we know of which is better than nuclear? Ion engines technically are more efficient, Tomast. Yeah. Technically. They're technically more efficient. But they don't provide a lot of thrust. Hall effect thrusters are quite good for that. Yeah. All right. In other news, just because I want to share it again, here's a new render of NASA astronauts going to the pad in 2023 in their canoes. Yeah, the Merlin 1A, that's right. All right, moving on. So there's Falcon 9 coming back from another mission, also FIRD, also shuttle transporter. Let's see. So we got a video here coming from Sierra Space about Dream Chaser. We're all dreamers. And like the pioneers that came before us, we have a tenacious spirit. Okay, no. This needs to be read in announcer voice. We're all dreamers. And like the pioneers that came before us, we have a tenacious spirit to make the impossible possible as we build Dream Chaser tenacity and a new home for business innovation in low Earth orbit. Great sentence.
We are dreamers.
Oh, crap. They already
like
did it.
The pioneers who came before us,
I like my version better.
we have a tenacious spirit
When it's inert, Swishio, yes.
to make the impossible possible as
Yours
we
is
build
better. Oh.
Dream Chaser
Oh.
tenacity
Oh.
and a new home for business and
Shooting star,
innovation
shooting star, shooting star.
in low Earth orbit. Join us in the next giant leap for humankind.
Discovery, go at throttle up.
Cool. Foudy Osmond, that's cool. Nice. Less Clint Eastwood, more Sam Elliott. Alright. Cool. Can I just want to look at the pictures of Dream Chaser. So Shooting Star is Dream Chaser's service module. Yeah, they're adding a service module for Dream Chaser. So think like, you know, like the Apollo capsule had the service module attached to it. Shooting Star is a service module that allows Dream Chaser to basically become a satellite. It can stay on orbit for long periods of time. Cool thing about Shooting Star is that it's also a pressurized mating adapter, CBM to IDSS. So, like the adapters that they use on the space station to attach Dragon and Starliner. Don't get me wrong, it's not going to be used in that role, but it could be. They designed that future-proofing in, from what I understand. So, that's a service module. That's the service module for Dream Chaser. And then, let's go back. There it is. There's Tenacity right there. Check it out. They started putting the tiles on, man. Also, a pickup truck bed. Yeah, I guess if you want to look at it like that, sure. More a trailer than anything, Swishio, but yeah, sure. Wait, is it not going to be, I thought SNC had CRS missions coming up. It could be, Blue. It could be. It's not, like, it could leave Shooting Star there, theoretically. Yeah, it could. I don't think it will on the first mission, though. That thing right there, that little mini space shuttle, is going to the space station, guys. Yeah. It's going to the space station. It's got tiles on it. See? They already have they started placing the tiles on it. Place the tiles on the top first, right? So, you know, you don't want to place them down here and try to place this and then bump it. That's really, really, really freaking cool. I'm so happy. Because SNC and Dream Chaser uses a lot of shuttle-derived tech. This is basically a little mini space shuttle, which is really cool. No payload bay, right? Note the compass directions on the wall. Yeah, right? Oh, man. It's a little babby shuttle, right? That's really cool. It's nice to see some flight hardware. And the shooting star right there, man. Yeah, see? That's pretty neat. Did this video happen to have a net date attached? Let me see. Nothing right now. Nice phone background render. That's pretty neat. What US-based program uses zero shuttle-derived tech at this point? Atlas. I miss that damn thing so much. Look at that. Does Falcon 9 use any shuttle parts? I don't think so. Want to hear something weird, though? A space shuttle delivered payload to the ISS for SpaceX. Yeah. Weird, huh? Yeah, that's a true story. Dragon Eye. The space shuttle delivered SpaceX's basically locator beacon for Dragon. It's called Dragon Eye. So the Dragon 1 capsule could find the space station. Yeah. Pretty cool, huh? Yep. Will this Dream Tracer be crewed? Nitro, no. Unfortunately, Sierra Space got a commercial resupply contract and not a commercial crew contract. However, there's a however. Per the CEO of Sierra Space, or at least it's either the CEO or the chief engineer, I forget who said this. The uncrewed version and the crew version have 95% part commonality, which means the only difference between that and the one with people on it is some seats, a control panel, and some windows. And that's about it. They are almost exactly the same. Think about it like Dragon 2 cargo and Dragon 2 crew. Same concept. Yeah, they're interchangeable parts. The only parts that aren't interchangeable are like the windows. Straight up. And of course, yeah, people on board. The payload changes, right? Duh. But yeah, so they could be. There could be crew on it eventually. And I'm willing to bet that there probably will be at some point. But yeah, pretty neat. Okay. Let's 720. Okay. Let's see what else we got here, dudes. So NASA's working on here. I'm trying to move all this around here. NASA's working on some inflatable heat shield technology. Let's see what they're up to here. I've been hearing about this. But I haven't really seen it. Let's see what we got. It's just a little vidya. I'm getting to it, Thomas. Thank you. I think this is it right here. Ouch, Hell Hydra. Yeah, there it is. They're moving it around. Okay. Cool. Alright, let's read. Boop. Boop. Inflatable heat shield technology stacks up for a flight demonstration. This is lofted here. The Bernard Cutter low Earth orbit flight test of inflatable decelerator, lofted, is scheduled to launch with NOAA's JPSS-2 polar orbiting satellite in fall of 2022. After hitching a ride to space aboard a ULA Atlas V, Lofted will inflate and then descend back to Earth from low Earth orbit to demonstrate how the inflatable heat shield can slow down a vehicle to survive re-entry. The Lofted Flight Re-Entry vehicle is comprised of several segments. The forward segment connects the inflatable heat shield to the inflatable system. The mid segment contains the interface to the rocket, along with critical power control and data acquisition electronics. And the aft or rear segment houses the ejectable data recorder, cameras, and the parachute system. All segments are now assembled, stacked, and ready for final environmental testing at Langley Research Center in Hampton, Virginia. At Langley, engineers will test the complete system to ensure Lofted is flight ready, and then it will be shipped to Goddard Space Flight Center in Greenbelt, Maryland for final acceptance testing before heading to Vandenberg in California for a launch. The Lofted is part of the Technological Demonstration Missions program with NASA's Space Technology Mission Directorate. The project is managed by Langley with contributors from Ames, Marshall, and Armstrong. Cool. Lofted will launch on the final Atlas V from Vandenberg. Thomas, I have a feeling that this Lofted demo will find its way into Vulcan. I have a feeling that Lofted will find its way onto Vulcan when ULA does smart reuse. Because once again, I am going to say this once, I'll say it again. I will cover this as many times as I need to. The launch market changed completely about a week ago. At the 37th Annual Space Symposium, Amazon announced that they purchased 38 Vulcan rockets? 38. A block buy of 38 rockets. On top of the 9 Atlas V rockets that they already bought. And then 15 Ariane 6 launches and like 12 New Glenn launches. It's the biggest commercial buy of rocket launches ever. And because the quantity of rockets that they bought was so ridiculously high, ULA is like, oh yeah, that reuse thing, yeah, we're doing that. Yeah, oh yeah, we're doing that. Holy crap. You want how many? Oh crap, we're gonna need more engines. I remember Orbital Sciences had plans for a recoverable Cygnus using an inflatable heat shield on the end of it. Cool. Lofted Tech does seem to be a good fit for smart reuse. Boom. What are they using them for? Amazon is using them to launch Project Kuiper. Project Kuiper is a Starlink competitor, Doom. Amazon's trying to get into the internet satellite business. So, yeah, they bought 38 Vulcan launches. So Vulcan has like 50 manifested missions, and then the NSSL contract on top of that. All the Dream Chasers are going to be moved on. Vulcan is going to see as many launches as Falcon 9 soon enough. That's pretty neat. All 38 will be at the same time. I wish, yo. But ULA changed their mind on reuse. Tory Bruno always said in the past, the CEO of United Launch Alliance, he always said in the past that he will consider doing reuse if the market is there. Newsflash, the market is there. And he said, yeah, we're doing smart reuse now. Oh yeah, we're going to need more engines. Yeah. 38 Vulcans, 2 BE-4s in the first stage. That's 72 BE-4s. And then 15 New Glens on top of that. New Glenn has, 7 BE-4s in it? Oh yeah, no, you best be working on that reuse real quick, man. And they are. ULA is also building a second Vulcan mobile launcher for Slick 41. So Slick 41 will have 3 mobile launchers, an Atlas V and 2 Vulcan launchers, and they're building another integration facility. So ULA is building a new VAB for Slick 41 to house 3 mobile launchers, which is really fucking cool. Smart reuse as opposed to stupid reuse. It's an acronym predominant. I don't know what it stands for. Engineers came up with it, and I'll tell you, engineers are not good at dealing with customers. Look, I have people skills. I'm good at dealing with people. Don't you understand that? What the hell is wrong with you people? And ULA is getting another vessel to move cores around. It's crazy. It's crazy, Thomas. Guys, I will say this once, I'll say it again. Literally the launch market changed. That is a $10 billion injection into the commercial low Earth orbit launch market. $10 billion. That's ridiculous. And then SpaceX just landed an $8 billion contract to launch OneWeb into space. This is getting out of hand, man. This is getting out of hand. I mean, this is escalating quickly. Now, what do you mean? I know what people are going to say. Okay, so what happens when they fulfill all these missions? When you buy that many freaking rockets, the price goes down. The price goes down. If the market's there, the price is going to go down. These rockets are going to become easier to operate. Right? The more you use it, the more you understand the vehicle, the more you can fly it. Done. That's what I mean. This is a paradigm shift in the entire commercial launch market. It literally... ULA is like, yeah, we're doing reuse now. Oh yeah, we're doing reuse now. And now ULA has a bunch of money to spend on R&D too, which is unbelievable. Now there are lots of them. Hey, haven't asked you in a while. How is spaceship progressing? When hop? FAA's things got pushed out for another 14 days, another 2 weeks. Hypersonic. SMART is, what is that? Sensible Modular Autonomous Return Technology. There you go. Project Jarvis. That's the end game, isn't it? Synerd. Yeah. And these satellite constellations are going to need regular replacement launches. This is literally changing the launch market from sinusoidal demand, comes and it goes, to constant demand. I don't think people realize how big of a deal that actually is. That makes it so we're always going to need to put more stuff up into space, to maintain satellite constellations, to launch more climate observation satellites, to resupply space stations, to build space stations. Because, guys, the space station modules are hard to make, and crew vehicles are hard to make, like Starliner, like Dragon, like Dream Chaser, like Orion. Those are hard to make. But the launch vehicles that they launch on is always the expensive part. And if the price of those go down, then guess what? The price of those capsules is going to go down too. This is one of the biggest leaps that we can make in making space accessible for everyone, which is unbelievable. That's really freaking cool. I can't speak enough good things about it. It's really cool. It's really cool. And the end game is that we're going to get New Glenn out of this too, because Amazon bought 15 New Glenn launches from Blue Origin. Kessler syndrome, though? Obsidian, to be 100% honest with you, yeah, Kessler syndrome is absolutely something we should take into account. Absolutely. But also, the reason why we haven't picked up space debris is because it's too expensive to go and get it. Because you're going to need a rocket just as big to go just as far into space with some type of deorbit payload. Honestly, satellite servicing vehicles will be very easy to launch into space. Garbage collection vehicles will be very easy to launch into space. I mean, and don't get me wrong, if they're not thinking about that, well, shame on them at this point. Starlink doesn't have to worry about that because Starlink, all the Starlink satellites are in decaying orbits to begin with. So even if every Starlink satellite malfunctioned right now, knock on wood, please don't happen, they would all come back down within a couple of weeks. True story. That was smart by SpaceX, and that also makes it so Falcon 9 launches are always going to be in demand to keep revenue service for Starlink going. That flattens the demand instead of like, I want you to launch my payload. Okay, my satellite's good. Okay, we need to launch a replacement satellite 10 years later. Demand in the market for commercial low Earth orbit launches has been sinusoidal basically since the 90s. It went up during the 90s, and then the dot-com bubble happened, and then it went up. It went up about 15 years later in the late 2010s, and now it's starting to go down again, but with these internet satellite constellations, it's just going to go up, and it's going to stay going up. That is a big deal. That is a drastic change in the market. Really, really cool stuff. You could, Synerd, sure. First First two Project Kuiper prototype satellites are going up on this lovely rocket. The RS-1. Oh, very nice. The mafia will start a garbage collection industry in space. What's a mafia, Jay? The mafia doesn't exist. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about. What are you talking about? It don't exist. How does he know so much about rockets? Blanning, you can ask me. I'm right here. I'm making a thing to keep up with chat. Yeah, I'm self-taught, dude. Self-taught. Yeah, been doing this for like a decade. So, you know, everybody's like, oh, I like NASA. I'm a nerd, right? I'm not a nerd. I'm more of a dork. Like, and quite possibly even a little bit of a geek, too. Yeah, I read about this stuff every day, and I have been doing it for the better part of a decade, and I try to explain it to people here on Twitch. If you're familiar with, like, what Everyday Astronaut does on YouTube, same idea, only I've been doing it on Twitch for, like, 10 years. Yeah, it's fun. Yeah, no, dork is probably the best word to describe me. And we love you for it. Thanks, man. Yeah. Yeah, man. When I started on Twitch, when I started going on Twitch, it wasn't even Twitch. It was Justin TV. When I started streaming, it was Twitch. But also, yeah, maybe even a little bit of a dweeb. Yeah. But yeah, Landing, that's how I know. I'm self-taught, dude. I read a lot. Because I'm a loser. That's what I do. That's what I do, man. It's my bread and butter. Do you have any plans for after space? Hold that thought, okay? Hold that thought for me. So, I am trying to end space news with that, Flykin, so please hold. No? Alright. So, I told you guys I would update you with news coming from across the pond whenever I can. So there's something very interesting here. And yes, it's coming from Dmitry Rogozin, but it's something that I didn't know and probably something that should be worth mentioning, okay? I'm kind of impressed. Right on, man. Thank you. It's what I do, dude. No, I'm not going to ask you to sub or follow if you like what you see. I don't care. Sub if you want to. Follow if you want to. Don't follow. I don't care. I like space, and talking about space usually gets people to come here. Thanks for watching, though. I do appreciate it. Now's the time for me to oh, this is where you plug. They like and subscribe and hit the bell button. Am I right? So check this out. Check this out. Very interesting. So Dmitry Rogozin stated that Axiom didn't pay 2 billion rubles for Mark Van High to fly to the ISS. According to him, the payment should be made this May. How goes the guitar? The guitar? I haven't played in a little while, can't tell. Alright. Axiom. Yeah, interesting. Huh. And somebody, this guy asked, why should Axiom pay for a NASA astronaut? And it turns out that Mark went up there because the seat was bought by Axiom and not by NASA. That's something that I didn't know. Mark Van High just came back from a flight to the ISS. He came back on Soyuz and then made it home. But I didn't know that Axiom bought that seat and NASA didn't. That's very interesting. So, I don't know. Should they pay for, dude, that's the dude. I've just reported that, dude. I don't know, is that, I'm going to assume that that's probably true, right? But I haven't heard it. I didn't hear anything about that until now. It's probably a piece of information that I missed. Yeah, Flykin, yeah, that's quotes. Yep. Axiom bought the seat and did a seat swap with NASA, which gave them a seat on Dragon or Starliner. Interesting. Huh. So, I don't know. Do they pay for it? Can they pay for it? I don't even know. Yeah, I don't have anything else to say. That's very strange. I'm gonna have to look into. I'm gonna look into that one a little bit more. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna look into that one a little bit more. That's very peculiar. I mean, what's 2 billion rubles nowadays? $1 is 82 rubles at the current exchange rate. Yeah. Yeah, here, check this out. Check this out, fellas. Look. It rebounded. I don't know the details as to why. Something happened right around here that probably didn't help. Yeah, interesting. It came back. Oh, look, it came back. There was a time there where the ruble was worth about as much as Monopoly money, but it seems to have come back. It seems to have stabilized. Well, actually, that's really not stabilization, to be 100% honest with you. Interesting. It's very... The rebound was a surprise. You know what? I'll say I don't know why. My guess is something with the bank. The bank probably curtailed the value or something. I don't know. Do you know? I'm genuinely interested. Like, which rocket is considered superior? Blanding. I consider every rocket to be like a tool in a toolbox. Okay, is a hammer superior to a screwdriver? No, not really. They're each good at doing their own different thing, right? I mean, there are some redundant capabilities, you know. Personally, I like the space shuttle. The space shuttle is my favorite. But see, even if you're looking at performance metrics, the Saturn V is arguably a better rocket because it can go to the moon and the space shuttle can't, right? But yeah, who knows? It depends on what you're trying to do. Engineering is about application. What are you doing? Not why did you do that? What are you trying to do, right? Fuel politics, Vasya? Okay. I would say that they sold their stocks to foreign currency somehow. I believe it is due to manipulation of their markets and increasing goods prices. Yeah. Trade with India and China didn't stop. Big markets. Yeah. I mean, why don't we just take our fuel and just sell it to somebody else? Unless Shuttle Centaur is a reality, then it beats it. Yeah, I wish, man. I wish. Hammer's just a hammer. An adjustable wrench is both a wrench and a hammer. Yeah, found the auto mechanic. It's a bit roulette, but Russia is making everyone buy Russian gas oil with rubles. Ah, they got themselves off the petrodollar. Okay. If they started trading in rubles, that brings value back to the currency. That makes sense, dude. That's not roulette. That's just economics. Why do you think the U.S. wants everybody to trade oil energy on the dollar? Duh. Russia demanded payment in rubles, which kind of stabilized their currency. Interesting. No. See, Cyliverus, don't worry about it. No, I know rocket science, and I know economics when it comes to rockets. But I'm not the best economy guy. There's much better streamers for that. My buddy Greg is really good at that. Econ Greg. He is an economist that streams on Twitch. Oh, who knew? He'd probably be better at it, right? I know. Crazy revelation. But yeah, that's really interesting. It's really interesting stuff. Economics is cool, man. That's something I've been trying to understand more lately. Any updates on SLS? I went through a whole spiel on SLS, Def. I actually started Space News with it. Space News started at 6, so go about 3 hours back in the VOD. Russia's move is like a band-aid for a heart attack. I mean, I guess. Also, Russians are not allowed to own dollars or euro anymore. Maybe not. I don't think that's right. I know. So, okay. Up until Russia invaded the Ukraine, I covered, fairly in depth, I covered the Russian space program. I haven't been doing it lately because I'm not the biggest fan of, that whole war thing. Yeah, not a fan. That's not cool. Don't like that. So I haven't really been covering it as much. So there's a fair amount of people from Russia and from Ukraine that watch the stream, So, yeah, so some of my buddies in Russia tell me that they're getting paid in dollars now, which is, okay. Where in fact Dogecoin is worth more than a ruble. Interesting. Vasi, you get paid in dollars. Yep, you're right. I was going to point that out. Interesting. That's like, you know what, man? Like, I hate war. War is bad, but I'm simultaneously like fascinated by this whole event. You know what I'm talking about? Like, don't get me wrong. War is wrong and people shouldn't die and that's bad. But like, I can't help but be like kind of fascinated by what's going on. Like, there's nothing good happening here, but trying to make sense of it, that's how my mind works, It's unusual. And thus interesting. Bingo. Kind of like spaceflight, it's very strange. And don't get me wrong, I'll admit that, it's not like war stopped at the end of the Cold War. There was tons of stuff going on. There was the whole, war on terrorism, etc., etc. But for some reason, this one's like super prevalent, and it's like, dude, there's been a war going on in Syria for freaking years, right? But this one's just got so much like press coverage and everything. It's like, because it's like country invading country. It's not like, like fighting an insurgency or something, And I'm not saying that was going on in Syria either. Like, I'm not completely ignorant when it comes to war. War is always being fought around the world in one way, shape, or form. They just don't call it war. Like, not even Russia calls this war a war. They call it a special operation. It's freaking war, okay? Like, it's just very fascinating that seeing these events unfold in real time. Like, this is like some Hearts of Iron stuff happening in real life. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to reduce the conflict down to a video game. That's messed up. That's just how my stupid mind works, It's just really interesting to learn and understand. Like, okay, so they sanctioned Russia, right? And then Russia says, fine, screw you. You want to buy our oil? You got to pay in rubles. So you got to convert the currency, and that stabilized their currency. It's very interesting. It's very interesting stuff. I know, Solar. It's kind of messed up, isn't it? We're seeing that play out in real time, the effects of that in the military. It's fascinating seeing the Mitch pass between... Yeah, right, Kagan? It's... Like, I don't want to talk about it on stream because, like I said, it takes time for history to kind of come into focus, right? Like, we know more about World War II than they did in 1945. I mean, it was kind of fresh in their minds at the time, but how the events transpired and how they went down and the effects of those events, we understand it better than we did right after it happened. Maybe not like 1945, maybe like 1947 or something, right? Like, history takes time to come into focus, and it's really, I'm really, like, interested to see where, like, how this is going to come into focus. But, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying, like, oh, war is really cool, we should go cover that. Nah, I don't. It's just interesting. It's just genuine curiosity, I think part of that is also fearless. Yeah, Blue. Yeah, God, it's very, very strange. It makes you realize how bad the early 40s were for a lot of people. It really does, Bill. Yeah. Yeah, Hotbox, I know what you mean. I don't get me wrong. I went and read around. It's very, just... Why is this one so prevalent comparatively to others, And once again, I'm not trying to undermine like anything, like that's going on. I don't think this is a good idea at all. It's really stupid. Like, war is such a waste of time. But man, it's like at the same time, it's like, what the hell's going on, man? That's strange, dude. Yeah, and I know analogy and stuff. Interesting, Hotbox. Interesting. Anyway, let's flip the page a little bit. So, that's the next one. That's exactly where I was going with it. So the next bit of news here is outgoing, as TMRO would put it, outgoing flights. So check this out. SpaceX just tweeted this a second ago. Targeting Friday, April 15th at 6:41 Pacific time for Falcon 9's launch of L-85. Weather is 70% favorable for liftoff. What's that, Jackery? Is this the first large-scale war in Europe in the modern generation? No, it's not, Jackery. It's not. The U.S. bombed the trash out of the Balkans in the 90s. Like, almost started World War III. Yeah. Kosovo and Serbia, man. Read about it. Very interesting. They shot down an F-117. It's the only F-117 ever lost. Yeah, it's very, very interesting portion of history, you know? Yeah, I know, Synerd, right? We did what? Go read about it, dude. War is always happening. Always. Sucks. Yeah, Swishio, right after that. You know, like I said, yeah, the Balkans War, the collapse of Yugoslavia. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So after... I'll get to the SpaceX launch here in a second. A little quick history segment. After the Soviet Union collapsed, the Eastern Bloc, so basically anywhere from Germany all the way to the border of Russia, was in chaos. Chaos. Like, it was bad. It's not good. Like, so like generals wouldn't, you know, because the supply chain stopped, because the countries every country broke apart, right? The generals like couldn't feed their troops, so they sold off all their tanks to the private market. They sold government property off the private market. That's how Buran ended up being owned by some guy in Kazakhstan, some random dude in Kazakhstan, and a bunch of Zenit boosters. They ended up selling everything off. And dude, they sold guns everywhere. They sold guns all over the place, and it completely destabilized that region, like completely. Like everything, like all hell broke loose, especially in the Balkans. So like around Bulgaria, Romania, Yugoslavia, which is not a thing anymore. It's Bosnia and Herzegovina, and then like Croatia, around there. So just a little bit east of Italy, that place went to hell. It went to hell in a handbasket. Like, not good. Not, dude, we were like this close. We were like, dude, about as close as we are now from the poop hitting the fan. It was close. Yeah, it was bad. It was bad. Yeah, that's something that really isn't... Shaw, I'll be honest with you, I never learned nothing about that in history class. Maybe because I was in school at the time when it was happening. That probably had something to do with it. Yeah, I didn't learn anything about that. We bombed the hell out of them. Like B-2s, B-52s, B-1s, F-117s. Like, yeah. We tried to do that because basically the region destabilized, and around the Balkans there's a lot of different ethnicities, right? So there's the Serbs, and there's the Croatians, and then there's the Bosnians, and they all hate each other. So when Yugoslavia collapsed, right, chaos broke out. They all just started fighting each other. And, you know, some of them were backed by Russia, and then some were backed by us, and then some were backed by NATO. Like, dude, it was a mess. It was a freaking mess. And then, you know, NATO ordered troops into former Yugoslavia to try and stabilize the region, but the Russians already did that. So what do you do when the NATO troops find the Russians, you know, because the Russians are backing the other guys, we're backing one guy. Like, dude, it's a mess. Read about it. It's like I said, interesting, but terrible. Terrible. Like, a lot of people got bombed. A lot of people died, dude. It's not good. Not good. Yeah, everybody called their troops peacekeepers, and then everybody, like, dude, it was a mess. It was a mess. If you're a fan of English musicians, James Blunt, anybody know that guy? Yeah, he was there. Yeah, he's talked about it before. He was there. Very interesting stuff. Not good. A lot of civilians died. A lot of civilians. Like, yeah, it was just as bad as it was now. Yeah, Shaw, read about it. You should know your history. You know, that's very important. Kosovo had to do with stopping genocide. How topical. Yeah, Serbia was trying to stop a civil war. Yeah, Geeson, he's a cool dude. Yeah, I mean, Hotbox, he's a friggin', from what I understand, he's a tank commander in the British Army. Look, there's certain types of people that are really soft-spoken, and there's a certain type of soft-spokenness that you just shouldn't screw with. James Blunt is one of those guys. He's funny, oh yeah, everything's all nice, yes. Don't piss that guy off. He'll go out. Yeah, no, that doesn't seem like a good idea. Yeah, Mark Felton has a video on it, Dead Crew. Yeah, I watched it pretty recently. Yeah, that's how I know. I can learn more about military history from that guy than I did from history class. Also, when Slovenia, Mantillia, and Yugo lost their stuff, it did a 10-year war to try and repress the republic. Yeah, no, Swishio. Yeah, that whole area, man. When the Soviet Union went, it became a freaking turkey shoot. It was not good. It was not good. And then we have another one on the 19th at 11. Sorry for the weird questions, but do you prefer subs or donations? Salavaris, I call them tips because, yeah, it's not a donation. I'm not a charity. My rule of thumb is to earn subs. So whatever you feel I deserve, you give. I have no expectations. I want to teach like history and space and science and all this other stuff, and you give what you think. I'm kind of honestly indifferent. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that a tip wouldn't help me more than a sub, because I get more of the tip than I do a sub. Abso-freaking-lutely. Or bits. Bits are good too. Thanks, Sean. I appreciate it. But yeah, if you're compelled to support, I will thank you from the bottom of my heart. If not, no problem. I don't expect anything. I don't expect subs. I earn them. That's my rule. Shaw, the timing, right? All British soldiers are softies.
Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
Vote with your wallet. Thank you. You do good work, 1540. Thank you very much. Yep. So, yeah. I mean, yeah. Dude, the whole thing, Shaw, like with Ukraine, and this is what I mean when I say this is much more complicated. There's a whole thing. Basically, this is...
Discovery, go at throttle.
Hey, Salavaris, thank you. I really appreciate it. That's 5 subs. Thanks a lot, man. You definitely put in the time. I appreciate that, Coffin. I appreciate that. I try, dude. I try to bring my A game every stream. Sometimes that doesn't work. Sometimes I sleep wrong and I have a stiff neck and I'm here going, I'm trying to give my A game and it doesn't work. Oh God, not you.
The Eagle has landed.
He bends over and speaks from his rear. Or him. What is this? Chocolate, choco early. God damn it. And then there's Geeson. Just, yeah, okay. Then there's him. But anyway, thanks for the subs, guys. You deserve it on every time. Thank you. My rule of thumb is earning subs. I earn subs. I don't ask for them. All right. And that's been my rule for the better part of a decade. And dude, like, you know, it's like, wow, dude, this streamer's really being serious, right? No, that's something I hold really near and dear to my heart. It's streaming. You can't come in with expectations. If you do, you're going to be disappointed. And that mentality hasn't failed me yet. Anyway. But yeah, what's going on in the Balkans and stuff, guys, and basically all the former Eastern Bloc, it's a very, very complicated issue. It's not just country invading country. Ever since the Soviet Union got gobbled up, heck, even before it got gobbled up, like, there is, dude, yeah, no, it's a very, that region of the world is a very old region of the world, and there's a lot of complicated things, social things going on there that, as an American, I just straight up don't understand. And it's not out of ignorance. It's not out of willful ignorance. It's because, dude, I mean, I don't know. That's why I'm so interested by this, because I'd love to learn. Okay, time to commit, I guess. Yep. Have you read this? NASA's new material is built to withstand extreme conditions. No, I haven't. That's cool. I'll have to check that one out. Yeah, Hellfish. Yeah, but even that, Russians not liking Ukrainians and vice versa, that goes back centuries. Centuries, dude. Like, dude, you know what's messed up? You know what's messed up? And I'll admit this. I didn't know this until maybe like a month ago, 2 months ago. I didn't realize Russians and Ukrainians hated each other. I thought they were bros. I'm dead serious. And screw me for being ignorant like that. You shouldn't be. Like, I guess not. Clearly. Like, I thought they were good. I thought the relationship there was like between us and Canada. You know what I mean? Like, nope. There's clearly something very, very different going on there that I'm just not too privy to. Silent tier one for 5 months. I'm confused. Yes, I am. In Russia in 1991, an armored group was ordered to take position after realizing that the position was taken, and they opened fire after some time. They were told that they were on the same side. So I know. Stressful. But what about fan pages like Great Africa, where there are comments like, "Yeah, double standards war in Europe is more important than Africa," and other stuff? I have mixed feelings about such comments. Strezaku, that's the point that I've been trying to make. You know what, man? War is not something that just reared its head on February 24th of this year. It's been going on for a long time. And any war is bad. It's like, I don't like it. It's not a good idea. Seriously? Violence? We're gonna do that? Okay. Humans, man. We're crazy, dude. Stuff doesn't change, right? That's what we do. You know, like, that's what I mean about being ignorant to it, man. A lot of people didn't know that there was a war being fought in Syria. Syria has literally been ripped in half over the last 10 years. I don't know if people know about that. That whole war is a result of the Arab Spring from 10 years ago. See what I mean? Like, war is always around. There's the Rwandan genocide. If you want to talk about that, that's no good either. Like, there's all kinds of conflict all over the world, and I think a lot of people were very ignorant to it up until this one, you know? I try to keep track of that stuff in the back of my mind, just, I don't know, man. It's probably better to keep track of it, you know? Yeah, Swishio, it's a mess, isn't it? Cyprus has been split for over 35 years between Cyprus and Turkey. Yeah, that's right. We lost a big ship today. Yeah, the Sullivan sank from what I understand. It's okay, we'll get it back, it's fine. But yeah, like, once again, I try not to be ignorant to the issue. But that one, and that's what I mean. I don't know. I thought everything was good there. Clearly everything is not good there, so... Glad to see people trying to learn about this stuff. Envy. Look, some people might not like the outlook that I look at this stuff, but you know, if you really want to understand why war happens, you got to study it. You want to understand why a phenomenon happens with a spacecraft, you have to study it. It's so important. You have to study it and analyze and figure out what's going on. And you know, like, Envy, I'll be honest, like, I even feel bad doing that with the current conflict that's going on, and that's what I mean about history taking a second to focus. I can sit here, and I can read that the Ukrainians sunk a Russian ship yesterday, right? And the Russians said, no, you didn't sink it, it was an ammunition explosion. We won't know the true extent of that event, like how big of a game changer or lack of a game changer or not, or yes, no, maybe. We won't know the ripple effect of that, so to speak, for a year at least. I mean, that year is kind of arbitrary. Like, you don't know the gravity of that effect, you know? Which is why, like, the first thing I said when this happened, like I said this on February 25th, keep your cool. Don't get sucked up into, like, hatred, for instance. You know, like some people, I guess, you know, if you're Ukrainian or if you're Russian, I mean, they already hated each other, I guess. Like, I don't know. But it's important to just take a step back and not make a judgment on something that just happened, because you won't know the extent of the effect, you know? That's something I've learned from the aerospace industry. You don't just sit there and shoot from the hip with judgments. That's a bad idea. That never ends well with spaceflight. And I don't know a lot about world politics, but I'm willing to bet that, well, world politics is complicated, so is spaceflight, so I'm willing to bet it's probably similar. That's something I can be sure about, at least I think. Gotta keep a cool head, man. You really want to understand stuff. Yeah, so that's why, I try to learn, I try to keep up. I'll be honest, most of the time I'm too busy with spaceflight. And maybe I'm a piece of crap for that, I don't know. Couldn't tell you. Anyway. We have learned, though, that tanks are now pointless. Yeah. You're not a piece of crap. Predominant, I don't think I should be ignorant to this stuff, because there's a lot of stuff that goes on in the world, man.
Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
One of the most open-minded NA citizens I've ever met. No offense to anyone, please never change. Sai, thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'm very into critical thinking. That's what I was taught in school. I was taught how to think, not what to think. That's very, very important. That's something that I try to pay forward here on the stream. And that's what I mean about earning subs, like on a completely serious note. I do not think this is the time for debates and doubts. Stuff is happening and facts are known. They're not subject to debate after evidence is solid. And yeah, I agree with you. No, I'm not trying to say stuff did or didn't happen. I'm talking about the effects of said events, right? That's what I'm trying to understand. Anybody can sit there and say that, a Falcon 9 in 2016 blew up on the pad. Or you could say solid oxygen permeation from densified liquid oxygen propellant being loaded too fast permeated a composite overwrap pressure vessel helium tank, causing the tank to pop inside of the LOX tank on the second stage, causing an overpressurization event, which led to a fast fire, terminating the vehicle, fairing, and pad. See what I'm talking about? Effects versus pointing out the obvious. That's what I mean. That's what I'm getting at. It's not whether the event did or didn't happen. No. So when are you buying a farmer's tank? Jeez. But yeah, anyway. So. Doom, jeez, man. Not a good time. Oh, my goodness. Anyway, so let's jump back into space news. Let's finish it up. Let's finish strong here. Let's do this. Is that going to be on EJ's new rap album? Yeah! Enraged? What's the color of the boathouse at Hereford? What's the color of the boathouse at Hereford? Yes! How'd you know? Wait, yes isn't a color. Sorry, it's from Ronan. Anyway, let's pop back in. So, SpaceX is targeting a launch at 6:41 Pacific time. That's 9:41 my time. So that is about... I'm going to start about 3 hours before my normal start time at noon Eastern. So take whatever my normal start time is, push it back a little bit. We got to get up early in the morning, which is why I'm probably going to play a shorter after hours tonight. Yes is a band, not a color. Well, that's a really roundabout conversation, Enco. ETA. It is 8 right now, so we're inside of 12 hours. No, am I stupid? Yeah, no. Yeah, no, I'm not stupid. Not much. Oh yeah, there's that time zone thing. I am stupid. Damn. Oh well. Can always get smarter, I guess. Yeah, there's that whole time zone thing. So yeah, we're 13 hours out. Sorry. Dude, okay, side note. You know how hard it is to do math on stream? Most of the time I get it right. Trust me. Get on stream in front of like a couple hundred people. and try to do math. You will be like, okay, 2 plus 2 is banana. Huh? It's harder than it looks. 2 plus 2 is 20 Wombo. Did you set it to Wombo? You know what gets me sometimes? Metric to imperial conversions. I know metric is easier. Shut up. I get it. I get it. I get it. You're right. You're right. Please. Please. Please no gibberish tonight. Please, I beg you. Sorry, Daddy. Anyway. So, we got a shot of the rocket out on the pad there. Tomorrow, the LAD-5 will carry a national security payload designed, built, and operated by the Reconnaissance Office, which will go into space on board a Falcon 9 rocket from Vandenberg Space Force Base at 6:41 a.m. Pacific Time. Oh, boy. That's a nice rocket. Let's say it again. We need to abolish time zone. Yeah. I don't care. It's simple math, dude. I love metric. Believe me. Yeah, I know, W. Rumored to be 2 intruder satellites. Okay. Star dates for all. All right. It's okay. Just laugh at their high ping. Why? 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 Why are they in Australia? What did they do? All right. Cast won't follow stage 2 and will end after the landing on LZ4. All right. Well, I'm going to be here bright and early. I'll see you guys at... don't get me wrong. Not leaving. Not leaving. I'll see you guys at 9:30 tomorrow, Eastern. So once again, that is about, 2 hour 30 before my normal start time. I'll be here. I'll be here. Anyway, so I got a couple more things here for you. A couple more things. Okay, so NASA's Perseverance rover. Let's take a look. So Perseverance took this picture today, and the Perseverance account said, I've been pedal to the metal lately, focused on my drive to the upcoming Delta. Okay. But I've spotted a few interesting things along the way. You look closely, and you can see part of the parachuting capsule I rode in on. Definitely wouldn't be where I am without them. There's the parachute that Perseverance came down on. And then there's the aeroshell right there. Actually, the aeroshell landed right side up. Huh. Goalie, what's that? Nice, nice. Nice. Look at that. There's the aeroshell, and there's the parachute. So what are those pieces? Here. I'll show you. Last, please. So what's happening today? Sorry, it was AFK. I've been doing space news for 4 hours. You want me to condense that into a sentence? Actually, it wouldn't be 4 hours. It was 2. But still, you want me to condense that into a sentence? Here, you want to know what happened today, Flacken? Here's what happened today. There you go. 2 hours condensed into one sentence. Woo! Oh, I meant if you're doing something after space or something. I don't know yet. Okay, so what you're looking at there on that Perseverance picture is the white part right here. See this piece? That's the aeroshell. Watch this. So when Perseverance came in, it came in on the aeroshell with the heat shield, right? And then after it came through re-entry, it pops the heat shield off. Well, pops the drogue chute. The actual landing video was cooler. I don't think we ever got some footage of the aeroshell, but... But see, there's the chute. It's actually not a drogue chute. That is just a parachute, but it's a Martian optimized parachute. So they jettison the heat shield right there, right? And then they pop the rover out, and the rover goes on its jetpack. Seriously, this actually happened, and I still can't believe that actually happened. But if we back it up a couple of frames, Yeah, Jock, it's pretty nuts, huh? This thing. See that? That and the parachute. I mean, keep in mind, that's just a 3D render. But there's the actual thing right there. Let's take a look-see. Yep, there it is. there's the arrow shell in the chute. That's actually, dude, it's the arrow shell sitting straight up. Not bad. Not bad at all. Iron everywhere. That's right. Pick up your trash, NASA. I mean, honestly, they should. If controlling the Perseverance rover, I'd go over and look at it. Yeah, said footage. Here you go. Yeah, you want to see the real? You want to see the real deal? We watched this live. So, oh my gosh, pyramids on Mars? Yeah. Here.
And to roll over to give the
Watch
radar
this.
a better look at
Remember,
the ground.
remember, dude, we watched this right on stream. Watch the live. Oh my gosh.
Chute deployed.
The navigation has confirmed that the parachute has deployed, and we are seeing significant deceleration in the velocity. Our current velocity is 440 meters per second at an altitude of about 12 kilometers from the surface of Mars.
Yeah,
Heat
that's
shield
right.
set.
There goes the heat shield.
Perseverance is now slowed to subsonic speeds, and the
So
heat shield has been
strange.
separated. This allows both the radar
It
and the
is,
cameras
right?
to get their first look at the surface. Current velocity is 145 meters per second at an altitude of about 9.5 kilometers above the surface.
Let's get to the good stuff.
Second, at an altitude of 4.2 kilometers.
It was like within a couple meters, Switchio.
OVS valid.
We have confirmation that the lander vision system has produced a valid solution
It's
as
pretty
part
cool,
of
Golly.
terrain relative navigation.
Priming. PBA is nominal.
We have timing of the landing engines.
324 miles an hour. Yeah. Oh,
Back
there's.
shell set.
Current velocity is 83 meters per second at about 2.6 kilometers from the surface of Mars.
What?
We have confirmation that the back shell has separated. We are currently performing the divert maneuver. Current velocity is about 75 meters per second at an altitude of about a kilometer off the surface of Mars.
Oh my gosh,
Bravo.
you got vertigo yet?
We have completed our terrain relative navigation. Current speed is about 30 meters per second, altitude of about 300 meters off the surface of Mars.
Damn, that's cool.
We have started our constant velocity.
Oh, that's
accordion,
so
which means
legit.
We are conducting the sky crane, about to conduct the sky crane maneuver. Sky crane maneuver has started.
Frick you. Just frick you. Are you
20
kidding
meters
me?
Off the surface.
How does...
We're getting signals from MRO. Tango Delta.
Touchdown confirmed. Perseverance safely on the surface of Mars.
That's nuts,
Ready
dude.
to begin
That's
seeking
so-
the sands of past life.
That's so freaking cool, man. God damn, that's cool. The freaking sky crane, man. Are you kidding me? The freaking sky crane, dude. That's so awesome.
From MRO. Tango Delta.
Bye-bye.
Touchdown confirmed. Perseverance safely on the surface of Mars. Ready to begin seeking the sands of past life.
Isn't that nuts? That's cool that it found the arrow shell. They found parts of the not the jetpack thing that you just saw, but parts of the arrow shell and the parachute. That'd be cool if they went and saw it. Oh, and they put pictures of it. There it is. They're talking about this piece right here. Remo?
Hi.
Hello.
What does this smell like to you?
I don't know.
It's some kind of childhood memory, but I can't quite... It's like strawberry...
Pencil eraser.
No, it looks like a pencil eraser, but it doesn't smell like a pencil eraser. It's not fudge. It's soap.
What are you pulling back there? Mostly soap, I think.
Yeah, bubble yum, or like ice cream truck ice cream.
Bubble tape.
That's what it is with
Bubble
bubble
tape.
tape.
Yep.
Thank you. That was very important.
All right. Okay. Good to know.
Love you, baby.
Love you too. All right. So that's the thing. Hey, that was important. All right, so I got a couple more things here. So check this out. The next launch going out of Slick 41 is the Orbital Flight Test, OFT-2. Boeing tweeted this today. We're targeting May 19th at 6:54 p.m. Eastern for Starliner's OFT-2 commercial crew launch. Tune in May 3rd at 11 a.m. Eastern to the media teleconference with our team and NASA to learn more about progress. Please, if May 3rd is on a Sunday or a Monday, I'm going to be annoyed. Oh, it's on a Tuesday. Yes. 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 May 19th. We get another crew capsule flying. I know, Swisio. Sorry. Hey, Paper City, what's going on? That explains why I get sick at the store. Those bars aren't fudge. Okay. Basic forklift operator? Predominant? Can we have a pool for what goes wrong this time? I think it'll be okay. That's really cool, man. Another spaceship ready to go, or at least soon. Good stuff. Good stuff. Okay, and then the last thing here is coming from Zach. Zach runs the Twitter account CSI Starbase. Let's see what he's up to. Hey, SpaceX Starship addicts, have you been wondering why SpaceX completely skipped over the third and fourth sections of the orbital launch tower? If so, check out this article I put together. Okay, let's see. Once the first section was completed, Stage 0 fans were finally able to get an idea what the rest of the tower would look like. If you're familiar with this launch tower, you notice that there were several important features missing at this stage of construction. Yeah, the stop for the chopsticks isn't there. A new wedge-shaped metal structure was attached to the tower section. Yep. Yeah, see the stopper piece? Yep. Last, please. What's up, Struzlaku? Why is it 6:54 and not 7? It's going to the ISS, so it has a very, very, very tight launch window. There's only certain times where the orbital path of the ISS crosses over Florida, and the ISS is directly over it. It kind of has to launch with the ISS right next to you. But because Kennedy Space Center is not on the equator, and the ISS is in an inclined orbit, so all the international partners can launch to it from their respective launch sites. It only crosses over KSC every once in a while. And that is like a minute window. It's not even a minute, it's called an instantaneous launch window. I don't like that at all, Bill. Please stop saying that. Where's the part? Oh, it's because the third, the segments are different. That's why they skipped to segment 5. This is a pretty good detailed analysis, guys. I'll link up Zach's website here if you want to read more details into it. Zach does really, really good work analyzing what's going on with Starship. Good dude, very smart. Go see what he's up to there if you want to read the rest of it. Basically, SpaceX skipped certain segments that they're manufacturing down at the Cape for their Starship pad. They made all the segments that are similar, so like 1, 2, and 5, they made them similar, like those are similar components, so they made them that way, and then 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 are all different because of like all the stuff that needs to be attached to them. So they started making like components quicker, from what I understand. Batch construction, yeah, I guess that would be a better way to put it, huh? All right, guys, well, I guess I'll save the Starship update for tomorrow, but in the meantime, we will end the stream. We'll not end the stream. We'll end Space News with this. Figured you guys might like it. Last thing I have for you.
We have been given the scientific knowledge, the technical ability, and the materials to pursue the exploration of the universe. To ignore these great
This ended up on the
resources
NASA archive.
would be a corruption of a God-given ability.
That's Von Braun.
10, 9.
Headphone users. Headphone users. Headphone users. This gets loud if it's the video that I'm thinking of. I'm turning it up.
Sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running.
What? Oh. Okay. All right. And I'll do a Starship update tomorrow with all the NSF footage. But that's going to do it for space news. So, fellas, I'll be honest. That launch is... that Legacy should still be flying. Yeah, you're gonna... I like it, Sushi. I think it looks great. Wait, I missed it. Can you run it back? What? I can't hear you. Yeah, Helvish, I think it'll be okay. 2 questions. Has Von Braun worked for the U.S. for so long that he lost his German accent? Flykin, I don't know what you're hearing. That is a very German accent. Listen to it.
We have been given the scientific knowledge, the technical ability, and the materials to pursue the exploration of the universe. To ignore these great resources
very German.
Would be a corruption
very
of a God-given ability.
No, Mikey, no. That is so not right. No, it's not. Shh. Yeah, I mean, Flykin, by the time that was filmed, Von Braun had been in the U.S. for... That was like in the early 70s, so like 25 years. So yeah, he probably lost most of it. What launch was that? You can figure that one out by the serial number on the side of the Saturn V. So that's S1C-2. So that's an early production S1C. So this has to be Apollo 4 or Apollo 6. That sounds like some schmuck from Boston. Yeah. Thanks. Dick. Did Von Braun ever return to Germany? Nope. What was the letter on for the fin? There's 4 fins, A, B, C, and D. That's to denote in the engineering footage what side of the rocket it is. Goalie, because from this shot, it's really difficult to figure out. Like, you wouldn't know, like, if you're just looking at this footage, what side of the rocket you're looking at. That's the reason why some of it's painted black and some of it's painted white. That's why it has the checkerboard, dudes. That's what they did. They painted the checkerboard for instrumentation so they could see the orientation of the vehicle from this engineering footage. This is all engineering footage, dudes. And we will get footage like this with SLS. Now, if, I don't know, NASA, I really hope they frigging show it. But, so, think about, like, okay, the Saturn V painting, like, with the stripes and stuff on it. You know how, like, if you know, they're doing like a crash test, an automotive company's doing a crash test, they paint the checkerboards on the car. Same idea, only you really don't want it to crash. But yeah, see, that's S1C-2. It could be 2, it could be 11. I'm not sure. But Thomas has the link here. Let me see. What did it say on the other stage? We've figured out what launch this was before in the past, but I forget what it was. That's so freaking cool. Here, what does it say on this? Yeah, that's S1C. They will, MC. So, S1C, that's either 2 or it's 11. I'm not sure. Here, let's see if we have some other footage here. Well, that answers that question. It's 11. And the funny thing is that that is a different launch. That's S1C9. So that means that it is 11. Because so it's S, so Saturn, first stage, C variant, 9th production model. So, list of Saturn V launches. Alright, let's go down here. Let's take a look. And let's find S1C first stage. That's one of those. That one, what serial number does that one have on it? You can't, it doesn't say, or it's hard to see. Alright, let's take a look. So there's S1C9, which is Apollo 13, and S1C11, which is Apollo 16. So that's footage from 14 and 16. Are you sure that all these clips are only from one launch? They aren't. That's right there. Unless there's a Saturn V that launched with 2 first stages attached to the bottom swish. No. This is a compilation of footage. It's not exactly. These aren't. This is not all the same Saturn V launch. Is that 9 or 3? Here, hold on. Let me back this shot up a little bit. That's 3. So 3 is an early one. That's got to be Apollo 4. Oh, that's 8. Apollo 8. Remember Apollo 8? So 4 is 1. 6 is 2. 3 is 8. Yep. Pudding. You remember the pudding? The proof is in the pudding where I felled off a log because the Pope is Catholic. Okay. Last, please. So all Apollo launches used an S1C. Used S1C variants of the stage, and then the S1B was the one that got demoed. Sorry to bring it up. No. You're not thinking about the naming convention correctly. S denotes a Saturn rocket. 1C. 1C denotes first stage, C variant. Okay? So, they're flagging, a lot of people don't know that there was originally supposed to be 3 Saturn rockets. There was supposed to be the Saturn 1, the Saturn 4, and the Saturn 5, believe it or not. Actually, it was supposed to be the Saturn 1 and the Saturn 4. So it was supposed to be an S1 stage, and then there was supposed to be an S1B. S1B never got made because they came up with the drawings for a Saturn C4, the Saturn IV, and they said that's not going to be enough. So they upgraded it to the Saturn V. And that became the third variant of a Saturn stage. So it's an S1C. Okay? And then, so the second stage on the Saturn V is S for Saturn rocket 2. Second stage of a Saturn rocket. There's also the third stage for a Saturn rocket, which is the S4. The Saturn C4 was supposed to be a 4-stage to orbit. When they upgraded the Saturn V, they switched it to 3 stages. So the third stage on a Saturn V is called an S4. But it was supposed to be an S4A. There's the S4A, which was the Saturn I's upper stage. And then that stage had 6 RL-10s in the stage. And then they switched it to 1J2 and made the S4B, which is what Saturn 1B is. Saturn 1B is an upgraded Saturn rocket with a Saturn V's third stage as its second stage. So, if you look at a Saturn 1B, you have a Saturn 1B first stage, which is an S1. Then you have the Saturn 1B second stage, which is an S4B. Saturn V, first stage is an S1C. And then the second stage is an S2. And then the third stage is an S4B. There is a numerical designation between Saturn 1 third stage, or Saturn 1 second stages, Saturn 1 S4s, and Saturn 5 S4s. Saturn 1 S4s are an S4B-200, and Saturn 5 third stages, those S4s are an S4B-500. So there were kind of two. There was one assembly line, but they were producing upper stages for both rockets, right? And so if you look at an S4B, not that we really can, there's not many of those around. There's like 3, 4, something like that. You could see whether the stage was supposed to be on a Saturn V or a Saturn 1, because it'll say S4B-2XX or S4B-2 or -5XX. Yeah. Pretty cool, huh? Yes, I know that cold because I'm a loser. Instead of saying I understand this, I really appreciate you trying to explain this, but this hurts my head. All right. Pause. Caps lock. Look. Eine Post bitte. Ja. Off topic, how's house hunting going? It's not bad. Still looking. So look, Saturn 1, S1, Saturn 1B, S1B, right? That they ended up using that. The S1B was supposed to be for the Saturn C4, but it never happened. So that one ended up inheriting the S1B name, right? That's one part that I didn't mention. I got that part wrong. Sorry, green screen's caught on the chair. Then you have the S1C. So S1A, S1B, S1C. Now, Flykin, what they did was the Saturn 1B does not need an S2. Okay, that's way too much upper stage for a small rocket like this. So they came up with the idea of introducing commonality between the Saturn V's third stage and the Saturn 1's second stage. Okay? So, on the Saturn 1, you had an S4 with 6 RL-10s. On the Saturn 1B, you had an S4B-200 with 1J2. And then on the Saturn V, you had an S4B-500. See? So S1, S1B, S1C, S4, S4B, S4B. Saturn 1 does not have an S2. Like I said, the reason why this is it kind of makes sense, but it kind of doesn't, is because the reason why that doesn't make a lot of sense is because that Apollo was supposed to have a Saturn C4. The Saturn V was supposed to be the Saturn IV, and then they ended up never making it. There's an S4 right there. See? 6 RL-10s. Cool, huh? I'm trying to find a picture. They curbled it, they just added stages. Because really smart people making things hard to figure out for less smart people. Yeah. And believe it or not, they had a successor to the Saturn V as well. I'm trying to find the one with the C4, but it's okay. You could see that this is kind of when they were still figuring it all out. They have the Saturn C1, and then they have the Saturn C5, which was the what that was supposed to be the C4. You could see in this render that there's 4 stages. So S1, S2, S3, S4. See what I'm talking about? The S3 stages, they ended up getting rid of it, and they ended up extending the S4 stage. That's what they wanted to do, or that's what they ended up doing. They had a successor to the Saturn V called Nova. That is an S1D. That is an S2B. And then they would have had an S4 on top of that. Yeah, an S4B on top of that. So, what's Nova? Nova would have had 8 engines in the first stage. It was a Saturn 8. And then in the second stage, it would have had, what was it, 6? It would have had 6 M1 engines. And then in the third stage, it would have been pretty much the same, right? Yeah, 8 F1 engines. Yeah. What's an M1 engine? It's a Hydrolox vacuum optimized version of an F1 engine. Oh yeah, the Saturn M1 engine. Read about it. Yeah, vacuum optimized F1 engine that's designed for Hydrolox. Dude, they were gonna go crazy with the Apollo program. They were gonna go crazy. Yeah, absolutely insane with the Apollo program. Now look, you want to see something interesting? Like I said, they were anticipating this. If you look at how tall the VAB is, it's designed for a bigger rocket than Saturn V. Guess what rocket it's designed for? If you go and look at the diameter of the flame trench at 39, 50 feet diameter right there. I'll give you a guess how big the flame trench is at 39A and B. Give you 3 guesses. All right, let's go end to end in feet. Oh, look, 60 feet. That's not an accident. These pads were built for Nova because Von Braun and the rest of the people from Apollo realized that the Saturn V was only good enough to really go to the moon. You could do other things with it, but if you really wanted to be serious about going around and going into space, you're going to need something bigger. They knew that, so they built the VAB and Complex 39 to be able to handle a Nova rocket. That's what they were anticipating to get to. They were going to start making these. Yep, the Saturn V really doesn't have the Delta V to be able to do much beyond like a Venus flyby, maybe. That's about it. They wanted, if we were going to go to Mars, and once again, this is where the Apollo program was going. It was going to go to Venus first. A lot of people don't know that. And then they were targeting Mars with this thing. That's why everybody got all pissed off when they canceled it, because they were scaling to this. The Apollo program was still ramping up. And they were going to build that sucker. That thing would have been insane. Did they ever make a mock-up? Nova is a paper rocket. It never got off the board. I've seen that, Kelly. Yeah, we've watched that footage on stream many times. I don't think they ever did a mock-up, dude. So the C1 never flew? No. Flykin, C1 flew. That's the Saturn 1. It's the Saturn 1. The Saturn 1 flew plenty of times, dude. Yeah. The Saturn 1 is one of the most underrated rockets, in my opinion. Seriously. So let's go to S4B, and then from there we can go to the Saturn 1. So the Saturn 1 ended up being absorbed into the Apollo program, okay? I meant in missions besides test flights. Well, okay, that's a little bit of a complicated story. You want to give me 15 minutes and then we'll start some short railroading for after hours? It's a good story. I'm down for that? Okay, so Saturn 1 rocket. It didn't start as part of the Apollo program. Not a lot of people know that. They were already working on the Saturn 1 when the Apollo program started. The Saturn 1's design dates back to the Army Ballistic Missile Agency, which is the Army. Von Braun, when he came over here after we basically took him from Operation Paperclip in 1945, we took all the German scientists so the Soviets wouldn't get them. And we made them engineer rockets here. I mean, some people don't like that. Some people do. Some people, I don't. Whatever. I'm sure everyone's going to have an opinion on that one. Whatever. That's not the point of the story. Listen up. After that, he went to design missiles for the Army. So at first, he built them a V2, and the American version of the V2 was called a bumper. And then they upgraded that design to Jupiter and Juno and Jupiter C, and then actually Redstone is what came after that. So it went from bumper to Redstone, and then Jupiter and Juno, which were upgraded versions of the Aggregate 4 design, the V2. Now, from there, by the time that all happened, it's the late 50s, early 60s, and the U.S. figured out that strategic reconnaissance, right, done by spy planes is a little bit dangerous, even with the SR-71. Soviets will eventually design a missile that'll shoot that damn plane down. So the solution was to whoosh, go faster. They figured out, oh, let's build a spy satellite. Let's just put a camera up in space. They can't shoot it if it's going 17,000 miles an hour. No problem. So that's exactly what they did. So they started the National Reconnaissance Office, etc., etc. And from there, it became a competition. Who was going to launch all these satellites for the NRO? Who was going to launch all of them? Well, they can. Katra, that's another story. At this point, that hadn't been invented yet. But yes, you're right. Gary Powers has entered the chat. Yeah, right. So, from there, they said, okay, we need to lug these big cameras up into space, these big spy satellites. They're heavy payload. Who's going to try to build a rocket? So the Air Force contracted out a rocket in the late 50s to launch these big satellites into space, and then the Army did the same thing. The Air Force came with the Titan rocket, Titan 1 and then later Titan 2, to launch these spy satellites into space. Well, not really the Air Force, but you get the idea. They basically did. And then the Army said, hey, we can do it too. And they told Von Braun to make a heavy launch vehicle that was heavy enough to move these spy satellites into space, right? So what did Von Braun do? Literally the most Kerbal freaking solution ever devised by a rocket. If you look at a Saturn 1B's first stage, it does look a little strange, doesn't it? Look at it. It's got all these stripes, all these checkerboards, etc., etc. That's very weird, right? It's very weird. It looks very strange, right? It looks like just a jumble of engines. Well, that's because it is. Yeah, the Saturn 1's first stage is a cluster of fuel tanks from Redstone, Jupiter, and Juno fuel tanks. Seriously, they took smaller rocket core stages from intermediate range ballistic missiles and ICBMs, and then built them into an aluminum space frame. Yep, it's a Jupiter missile in the center, surrounded by Junos. Yep. So some of these tanks on the sides are carrying liquid oxygen. Some of them are carrying RP-1. tank in the center is carrying liquid oxygen. They basically just took a bunch of missile stages, right? We'll use the tooling, the factories for these missiles, made longer tanks, and then put them in a cluster like this. That's what a Saturn I's first stage is. That's what an S1 is. And then they went to Chrysler. Yes, that Chrysler. Chrysler, like the car company. And they told them, manufactured, but that came a little bit later. I actually put that detail a little bit too early. So the Army came to town with this. They came to town with that, and then they wanted to make that S4. It wasn't called an S4 at the time. It was just a Saturn I upper stage, right? And the Saturn I upper stage is that the S4 right here. See that? It's basically a big Centaur stage, right? So you got a balloon tank, right? Balloon tank, hydrolocks with 6 RL-10A3s in it. That's what they wanted for the second stage, to get the performance to launch these spy satellites into space. So the Army had a rocket to submit to launch spy satellites, and the Air Force had a rocket to submit. Now, the thing is that the National Reconnaissance Office is part of the Air Force. So they picked the Titan rocket to move the spy satellites into space and started the Titan III program. So, Titan II into Titan III. That left the Saturn I with basically no mission. Or did it? Right around that time, the Army Ballistic Missile Agency got disbanded. Basically, it was absorbed into NASA. It became NASA. And then they had the Apollo program. So all of a sudden, the Saturn I was back on the table as a heavy lift launch vehicle. And that's what they did. They took the Saturn, and they made the Saturn I, and they started flying. The Saturn I up until this point really hadn't even been designed yet, except for like a couple of test articles, right? There had been one test article made for thrust tests and whatnot. I can show you that picture of that in a moment. That's this one right here. So that's the SAT, Saturn I first stage. It was the first Saturn I stage ever made. They tested it, and then that project got rolled into basically the start of the Apollo program. So that S1T, or the S1AT stage right there, was the first Apollo stage manufactured for the Apollo program. Remember that in your mind, okay? What is the KSB equivalent to an RL-10? Poodles? Poodles or Terrier engines? Terrier engines, probably more. So they started using it to test stuff for the Apollo program. Instead of moving a big payload, right, they switched the Saturn I. They completed the Saturn I program. It had a couple of good... They tested a couple of end-to-end tests with the system, right? But then they started putting the Apollo capsule on it. Note that a couple of these flights here basically have what looks like what would become a payload fairing, right? And then these guys start having the Block 1 CSM on it. And then after that, they rolled the Saturn I into the Saturn 1B by giving it, Saturn V parts, basically. And Chrysler made the first stage. So the Saturn I ended up being instrumental in the Apollo program because it gave them a heavy lift launch vehicle. And then what they learned with the Saturn I, they rolled it right into the Saturn V. The Saturn I is an insanely capable vehicle for what it is. It is an insanely capable vehicle. The Saturn I can put 20,000 pounds, or 9,100 kilograms into space. Now, don't get me wrong, that's not a lot by today's standards. It's really not. Falcon 9, for instance, in expendable mode, can put 22,000 kilograms into space. So somewhere hovering around like 50,000 pounds, right? However, if you look at its bigger brother, the Saturn 1B, which is the upgraded version of it, look at these numbers. The Saturn 1B was flying by the mid-60s, and it literally has the performance numbers that are in line with the Saturn V. It's a very, 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 very capable vehicle for what it was, right? So they used it for doing tests. They used it to launch the first service module into space for the Apollo program. They used it to launch the first lunar module into space. Yeah, first LM flew inside of a payload fairing on a Saturn 1B. And it's funny because the payload fairing, right, on AS-204, the payload fairing is quite literally this, but they took the nose cone and they just placed it on the top and took the LES off. Seriously. They took the nose cone fairing for the command service module, made a dud version of it, and then just put it on the vehicle staging adapter. That's what that is right there. See? So they used basically surplus Apollo parts to make a payload fairing and launch the damn thing into space. Pretty dang cool. Apollo 7 was the first crew flight, after Apollo 1 didn't end very well. Rip. Apollo 7 was the first crew flight, so this thing is a crew-rated vehicle. It can launch the CSM into space. No problem. Right? It's very good, actually. And it ended up doing Apollo 7, and then after that, they used it as a low Earth orbit access vehicle to get to the Skylab space station, and then Apollo-Soyuz test project on top of that. The crazy thing is that Saturn 1B has a trunk. It uses the same staging adapter as the Saturn V. So you could carry something as big as the LEM in there, not as heavy because it's not a heavy lift launch vehicle, or it's not a super heavy launch vehicle, it's just heavy. So this is a trunk. You could pull parts up with you. Like the docking adapter that docked the Apollo CSM to the Soyuz is riding in the trunk of this Saturn 1B. It's crazy because even by modern vehicle standards, by modern launch vehicle standards, you look at Falcon, you look at Atlas, Delta, Saturn 1B is right in line with the numbers. It is it was a fantastic vehicle. Now, the Apollo program, was designed to launch the Saturn V, right? Saturn V in doing a lunar orbit, what's called an LOR style mission to the moon, lunar orbit rendezvous. Basically, you launch the lander and you launch the capsule all in one shot. You send it all at once. That was the primary thing that they were trying to do. But now, okay, so if they were making the Saturn V, why did they make the Saturn 1B? Well, they carried it over because the development was already started. But the Saturn 1B was a backup for another mission profile that ended up never flying. It's called Apollo EOR, or Earth Orbit Rendezvous. Basically where you take 3 Saturn 1Bs and you launch one with a nose cone on the top and a docking ring on the second stage, right? You launch one with a CSM and you launch one with a LEM, and you assemble what the Saturn V could put up in one shot in low Earth orbit, and then you fly it. That was their backup plan in case the Saturn V didn't work, because they were going to get to the moon by the end of the decade, and it made sense using the Saturn I because it was already halfway developed when the Apollo program started. So they added that as a backup plan. That's also the reason why they built Complex 37 down at the Cape, which is a twin pad Saturn I launch complex, or at least that's what it started as. It's a Delta IV launch complex now, Slick 37B. That's where they launched Delta from, right? How many tons was Nova able to take into space? Oh, I don't know. A lot. A lot. So, Saturn 1B, once again, is one of the Chadliest of Chadley launch vehicles ever designed. It's right in line with the needs for a modern launch vehicle, even to this day, and it was doing it 50 years ago. Unfortunately, after the Apollo program was canceled and they decided to go with the shuttle, the Saturn 1B had nothing to do. It had no reason to exist because the Air Force wanted to go with Titan. After that, they tried to bid on contracts for the National Reconnaissance Office with Saturn I, and they tried to, and the Air Force was like, "Nah, we're gonna stick with Titan 3, because Titan 3 is ours, and Saturn I is an Army thing, and we're the Air Force, and screw the Army." A little bit of inter-service rivalry going on there. So after the Apollo program got canceled, and the space race ended with the Apollo-Soyuz test project in 1975, Saturn 1B was retired to be replaced by the space shuttle. Titan was supposed to be replaced by the space shuttle too, which is funny because it didn't. Yeah, it didn't. So they stopped using it. They had no need for it, which is a damn shame. That's a damn shame. They should have retained. Hindsight's obvious. Obviously, if you're promised what the shuttle was supposed to do, the Saturn 1B looks like a freaking V2 comparatively, right? It looks like a piece of junk compared to the space shuttle. And to be fair, it kind of is, you know. But also, this, you know, if the space shuttle had achieved what they had promised, yeah, it would be in that regard. But it didn't, because they asked for a Ferrari and gave you the budget of a Toyota Corolla. So we've talked about that before. So the shuttle never delivered as promised, unfortunately, because, you know, NASA engineered that with one hand tied behind their back. So, since the shuttle didn't deliver on its promise, the Saturn 1B would have been great. It would have been great to just keep flying that. Keep flying that to keep costs down, because the engineering's already done. Use that in the Saturn V. You could make one hell of a lunar program with that. Have the Saturn V deliver a bigger lander up into space, and then send the Saturn 1B up to dock with it, and then send that whole thing out to the moon. Or have Saturn 1B dock with a Nova rocket. Even better. And then you could send a Skylab out to the moon. No problem. So, yeah, the Saturn 1B is, you know, why did they develop it? Well, it was a critical stepping stone in the Apollo program. Yeah, really, really important. You know, it's kind of overlooked. Once again, I'd say that the Saturn 1B is one of the most underrated vehicles ever designed. It is extremely capable, even by modern standards. This thing can do what a Delta IV Heavy can. A Delta IV Heavy. Yeah, seriously. And if you gave it a third stage inside of here and gave it a better payload fairing, it could do more. It could, like, you could do some crazy stuff with it. Was the second stage restartable? Human on the Saturn 1B? It could be, sure. Remember how I denoted that the S4B-200 was for the Saturn 1B and the S4B-500 was for the Saturn V? The 500 is capable of doing multiple restarts. I'm not sure if the 200 is able to do that. I'm not sure. But you could always put a 500 on top of a Saturn 1B, or Saturn 1B first stage. Yeah, they could have done that. The cool thing is that the Saturn 1B shares, by the end of its development, it shared an insane amount of part commonality with the Saturn V. Even so much as literally launching on a Saturn V launcher with an adapter down here, called a milk stool, instead of a Saturn V first stage. They did this, and they elevated the rocket up here, and they made an attachment point for the Saturn 1B first stage, so the umbilicals for the S4 and the umbilicals for the crew access arm, vehicle stabilization system, and Apollo CSM umbilical would all align. So you could have one launch pad launching multiple types of rockets. NASA had this. That's what I mean about canceling the Apollo program. They had all this crazy stuff figured out by 1972, and then they're just like, nah, use the shuttle instead. It's really upsetting, actually. It's really freaking annoying, man. Now, there are a couple of Saturn 1s still around. That's SA-209. That was a Skylab used for the Skylab backup mission. That's a real one. That's at the rockets, the rocket garden at KSCVC. That is a real Saturn 1B. Right? That's a real one. There are... This is the part where this story turns south real fast. There are other Saturn 1 and Saturn 1B parts around. Some of them were abandoned in place. Some of them were never used. Some of them NASA just put out in a field. The reason why I said remember the S1AT, the test article, the first Saturn stage, the first stage that was ever constructed for the Apollo program. Yeah, the reason why I said remember that is because a week ago, literally a week ago, NASA took that out in a field and took an excavator to it. They offered it to a museum and nobody accepted because they did it during COVID, and then they said, oh, nobody accepted it, let's demolish it. And they demoed it. Yep. I freaked out. Yeah, I freaked out. If you watch the space news from like a week and a half ago when I figured it out, I freaked out. Yeah, I got really upset. I'm still upset. That is the first stage ever made for the Apollo program, and they took it. Some dingbat took an excavator to it. So there are some Saturn 1 and there are some Saturn 1B parts around. They're still around. They're in museums and stuff, except for that one. But, yeah. Yep. What happened to the milk school? Milk stool? Scrapped. The weird thing is, it cost them nothing to store it there, and they could have left it for what it was. That's what pisses me off, Jim. Yeah. Like, why? Why get rid of it? Just put it... You just leave it there. Just put it on the side of the road. What is it going to do? What is it, an environmental hazard? If it was an environmental hazard, you wouldn't have taken a damn excavator to it. That's why that's so freaking... It's so frustrating, dude. But I'm not about to drive myself up the wall. But yeah, like the Saturn 1B was critical to the Apollo program. It started as a spy satellite delivery vehicle, but it was critical to the Apollo program. Yeah, absolutely. They used it to test the CSM, and they used it to test the LEM. Yeah. Yeah, really, really underrated launch vehicle. Thomas, we'll rope the Strato launch stuff into tomorrow's news. They should have just put it at the side of the road with the free side on it. They basically did, Jasper. You had to pay for the shipping. But they said it's going to cost about $250,000 to move it anywhere because it's a big stage. It's a heavy launch vehicle stage, right? And the thing is, that thing came up for donation in late 2019. Late 2019, and they were looking for people to take it, museums to take it during 2020 and 2021. And then shocked Pikachu face when no one said, yeah, we want that. Like, oh man, you are making me so angry. See, this is why I love you and your stream. I learned so much. You help us learn in a fun and informative way. Things just stick in my mind with you. I wish you were my teacher in high school. Yeah, well, I try. But yeah, that's why I'm pissed. Look, if the pandemic wasn't going on and nobody wanted it, and then they said screw it, all right, whatever, get rid of it, I would have understood that. I would have understood it. I would have been upset about it, but I would have understood it. But the fact that they said, ha, nobody wants this, in a time where every single museum in the country is literally closed because they have to be. And then they were like, I guess nobody wants this. Demolish it. That is. Bring it in. I'm not upset. Yeah, that's very frustrating. It's very frustrating. Yep. Yeah, it's very annoying. Thomas, we'll save the Strato launch news for tomorrow. Anyway, that's the end of space news, guys. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. If you like more deep dives like this and story time and stuff, I can tell the stories. It's no problem. You guys tell me. Tell me if you want this type of content. Let's be real. The answer is going to be yes, right? Obviously. So I'll try to sort of see what I can do with more deep dive content like that. Storytime is cool, man. The history of space is so interesting. It's so interesting. And it gets you pictures like this. You want to realize, you want a good picture that conveys the scale of Saturn V. There you go. Why can't museums take it and move it while they're closed? Not sure what being closed has to do with their decision. Museums operate off patrons coming to them. Every museum, via mandate immolated, had to shut down. They were mandated because of the pandemic. You couldn't do business. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Well, how does it correlate? Well, yeah, the CDC said you couldn't. You could not stay. You're non-essential. So even if they wanted to go and get that stage, even if they had the money to go get that stage, they couldn't do it. You could be our Mark Felton for space. Oh, I would love that. Hey, Tron, what's going on? Yeah, because no one's going to the museums. No money to fund the transfer. It's a shame. It's a damn shame. Yeah, museums don't operate on a lot of overhead, guys. They really don't. But yeah, it's annoying, isn't it? Fortunately, nothing like that happened to any Saturn V stages, or else I would have blown a gasket. But yeah, crazy, huh? Now that we're out of space news, do you feel comfortable talking about the Moskva, or is that too late? We had a little bit of a conversation about current events in the middle of Space News, King. I mean, from what I understand, it's fulfilling its duties as a submarine now. Because Neptune missile go brrr. Museums don't usually buy things, they rely on donations. Bingo. Yep. Dang it, I missed it. Yeah, I guess they got it, which is... Yeah, I guess never underestimate people that wanted to be just left alone. Never underestimate people's resolve when your home is being threatened. Literally castle doctrine on a geopolitical scale. Literally castle doctrine. You're on my land. No, I'm not. This is my land. No, it's not. No, it's literally that. Crazy. I heard they evac'd everybody off before it sank. Basically, it's on fire. Fire is terrible for a ship. That is the... Dude, I'd be worried... If I was serving on a ship, I'd be more worried about fire than water literally coming through the hull. Yeah. Water can be controlled. Fire is a lot harder to control. The largest ship lost since the Second World War. Yikes. Yeah. And not only that, all the missiles on board. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. The Russians even put a piece of the true cross on board, an Orthodox Christian relic before the war. Oh. Yep, you're probably not getting that one back. The Twitter account of Ukraine has been crap posting about it. Dude, that's... Once again, alright, we're gonna shut up Space News there. Guys, I'm not gonna stream for much longer. We'll do some railroading for a little bit. But if you're out, I will catch you tomorrow at about, I don't know, 9:30 for the launch, something like that. And then, yeah, we'll do a nice long stream tomorrow. It'll be good. Either that or I'll wake up early and hurt my neck or something stupid and it'll ruin the rest of the day, like what happened.